Chapter 26. With the bull talisman, Peter's figure became more upright. His shoulders were broad, his waist was narrow, and his muscle lines were more obvious. Gwen also noticed this. "Peter, what are you doing recently? How come I'm training so hard that I can even participate in the Mr. Bodybuilding competition?" Peter smiled slightly, lifted his clothes, and revealed his full abdominal muscles. Peter, what are you doing?" Gwen quickly looked away, but still glanced at him intentionally or unintentionally. Her cheeks instantly turned red. "Don't pretend, Gwen. You obviously want to see it, and even want to come up and touch it." Peter wanted to laugh when he saw Gwen's shy look. He was also willing to tease Gwen from time to time, even if it was to spice up her superhero life. "Peter, you look like a gangster who wants girls' phone numbers outside the school." "Nonsense. I'm much more handsome than them." The two quarreled as usual, but a different emotion rose in their hearts. For Gwen, this ambiguous relationship with Peter made her quite happy, just like the mutual testing between the male and female protagonists before they officially get together in a TV series. But her personality is more inclined to play straight. "I like you, and I will express my feelings to you." The reason why she did not express her love for Peter is because of her identity as Spider-Woman. Although Peter said that he was a fan of Spider-Woman, what if he didn't want to be with such a weirdo in his heart? What if Spider-Woman brings danger to Peter? Peter is just an ordinary person and can't deal with danger. Gwen was a little distressed, and Peter reached out and hugged her arm. "Okay, don't think so much. Let's go. There's still dessert to eat. By the way, who made that lemon sea base?" "Hee, it's delicious, right? I made it. No wonder it tastes so bad. If you don't know, you would think you were eating Westlake vinegar fish. I can use it for several hours, and you actually said it tastes bad? I'll let you taste my cooking skills when I have time another day. Have you heard of fish stewed in an iron pot?" The two sang and made noises from the rooftop back to the living room. In the blink of an eye, a month has passed. During this month, the relationship between the two has improved a lot. Because they are both adults, their relationship is not as pure as when they were young. Intentional or unintentional physical contact indicates that their relationship will undergo a qualitative change in the future. Saturday morning. Peter's high school grades are very good, and his physics teacher intends to cultivate him into the path of physics. So he wrote a letter to Otto Octavian of Osborne Enterprises. He hopes to let his students visit his experiments. In this way, Peter's knowledge of physics will increase. Originally, Peter was going to refuse, but after hearing the name Otto Octavian, he hesitated. Advertisement: maybe this name makes people feel unfamiliar, but his other name is definitely well known, even infamous. Dr. Octopus. A nearly crazy villain. A guy who was brainwashed by the machine he invented. Maybe he can be stopped. Peter left home early in the morning and took a taxi to Osborne Company. He can use the rabbit charm, but there is no need. When it is not necessary, he prefers to act as Peter Parker. Enter Osborne Company. Because of the appointment, the receptionist showed him the floor where Dr. Otto was. Peter entered the elevator, and he was the only one inside. Just as the elevator door was about to close, a voice sounded. "Please wait a moment." Then a pair of pale hands blocked the door that was about to close. Peter was slightly stunned. The person who came in was none other than the Green Goblin who attacked various schools in New York some time ago. But at this moment, he should be Norman Osborn, who has temporarily regained consciousness. This billionaire boss was so thin that his suit was empty. There was no flesh on his face, as if there was only a layer of skin on his cheeks. He looked at Osborn, and Osborn looked at him. Then he was slightly stunned. "Peter, it's me, Mr. Osborn. I didn't expect you to remember me." Norman Osborn laughed. "I definitely remember. You and Harry were classmates in elementary school. You used to have a good relationship and often came to my house to play. I even made apple pie for you. You and Harry haven't seen each other for a long time, right?" Peter nodded. "Since he transferred to another school in the 3rd grade of elementary school, we haven't been in touch since then. After all, we didn't have our own mobile phones at that time." Norman Osborn laughed. "He should be back in a few months, and you can meet then." "Peter, let's add a contact number, and I'll call you when he comes back." Peter was a little surprised, but didn't refuse. Although Green Goblin did all kinds of bad things, Norman Osborn was absolutely nothing to say. He was engaged in research in biological sciences and in the medical field. He also spent money to build schools and treated his subordinates and juniors very well. If it weren't for the family's inherited disease, he wouldn't have become like this. It's a pity. Peter didn't have a horse charm, otherwise he would definitely be able to cure him. The moment he was cured was the moment when Green Goblin's personality ended. P.S. Because I have to go to work, 5 chapters a day is the limit. I didn't want to update this chapter at first. I was so sleepy. But I said before that 500 flowers will add 1 chapter. After thinking about it, I decided to fulfill my promise. After all, people can't stand without faith. I won't ask for data in the future. I really can't work hard QAQ. Chapter 27. It's great. Osborn sighed sincerely. What? Peter didn't understand what he meant. Osborn looked at him and smiled and said, It's great to be young. You won't feel tired even if you don't sleep all night. Cherish your time now. Youth is priceless, and health is priceless. By the way, what are you doing here? Is it a visit arranged by the school? No, it's not. Peter shook his head. I'm looking for Dr. Otto Octavian. The teacher asked me to learn physics from him. Is that so? I'll go with you. With my company, he will pay more attention to you. After all, I'm his sponsor. Peter nodded and didn't refuse. He couldn't help but sigh again in his heart. I remember that when he watched the movie in his previous life, his feelings for this character were very complicated. To say that he is bad, it seems that he is not completely bad. After all, it is the Green Goblin personality that leads him to do evil. To say that he is good, how can a good person throw a bomb into a crowd? It seems that death is his best salvation. Otherwise, there will only be the torture of 2 personalities entangled with each other. At this moment, the system's voice suddenly echoed in his ears. The polite entrepreneur in front of him has a demonic personality behind his back. A new task is started. Punish Green Goblin. This task has 2 meanings. 1. Kill Norman Osborn, and the task is completed. 2. Kill the Green Goblin personality in Norman Osborn. No matter which ending you achieve, you will get points reward. Reward points are 20,000 points. Attention! Schizophrenia patients cannot be completely cured. Even if Green Goblin is killed, he may be reborn. Good luck. Peter scratched his head. 2 thoughts intertwined, and he couldn't decide for a while. Kill or not? If he killed, Peter felt a little guilty, especially at this moment when Osborn was so enthusiastic about him. If he didn't kill, Green Goblin might be resurrected. In his previous life, Peter had seen many movies about Spider-Man. Because of the long interval, some plots have been forgotten. But one scene is particularly memorable. Aunt May of the 3rd generation Spider-Man was killed by Green Goblin. Keeping him is always a time bomb. There is a risk of explosion at any time. Peter looked at Osborn, who was smiling beside him, and decided to give him the power of choice. 10 days. If Osborn does not continue to make trouble within 10 days, then find a way to get rid of the Green Goblin in his body. If he kills someone, then kill him and leave no future trouble. The elevator door opened. Osborn took Peter out of the elevator. As soon as he got out of the elevator, he saw Otto Octavian, who was sturdy and had a little baby fat on his face. Osborn. Otto was stunned for a moment, obviously surprised by Osborn's arrival. This is the future Nobel Prize winner. Osborn said humorously. I'm not doing this for the prize, but your research can make a lot of money for the company. After a few polite compliments, Otto's eyes moved to Peter. This is... Oh, let me introduce him. He's Peter, a high school student with pretty good grades. Peter took the initiative to shake hands. Advertisement. Hello, Mr. Otto. The 2 held hands together. I know why you're here, but I really don't want to waste time on high school students. But Osborn is my sponsor, and your physics teacher is my classmate. So, it's an honor, Mr. Parker. You 2 chat first. Osborn felt a little unwell. It seemed that another of him, the personality of Green Goblin, was about to come out. Osborn hurriedly left Otto's office. Otto looked at Peter and said with the attitude of an elder, I heard from your physics teacher that you are very smart, but I want to tell you that having a good mind is useless. You must work hard to improve yourself. Intelligence is not a privilege, but an ability. You should use it to benefit mankind. Peter nodded. He agreed with this view. Although he had killed many people recently and even accumulated 20,000 points, the purpose of doing all this was to make the world a better place. He couldn't help but sigh when he thought of this. It's a pity that someone like Dr. Otto eventually became a big villain. Peter wanted to stop it and do something to change this ending. But the time interval was too long. After all, he had been in this world for 18 years, and his memory had long become blurred. He only remembered that Otto was controlled by his mechanical tentacles, but the specific details had long been forgotten. Otto, lunch is ready. Suddenly, a lady came over. Otto smiled and introduced, Peter, this is my wife, Rose. This is Peter. I know, the smart one. The one who won a million scholarship. Rose smiled warmly. Come on, kid. Your future will definitely surpass Otto. Otto spread his hands. I also received a scholarship, although it was only $500. By the way, is Stark crazy? He actually gave so much money to charity. Peter looked at Rose on the side and couldn't help wondering. In the plot of the first-generation Spider-Man, did Dr. Octopus have a wife? If I had known that I would travel through time, I should have engraved all the plots in my mind. Otherwise, I wouldn't be like now, with only a vague understanding of the plot. Chapter 28. Soon Peter's attention was attracted by the huge amounts of machines in the lab. Otto introduced, isn't it shocking? This is the machine that completes and maintains nuclear integrate. You can also think of it as controlled nuclear fusion. Peter walked towards the machine. You use the harmonic frequency of atoms, which is actually the resonant frequency, to enhance the effect of integrate and generate powerful energy, endless energy. Otto couldn't help but look up to Peter. She thought Peter was a student with good grades, but she didn't expect him to be a genius. The physics knowledge involved in this research is far beyond what high school students can involve, and Peter actually understands it and can even explain the principle. Otto admired this young man very much at this moment. Peter, you really opened my eyes. When I was your age, my grades were also among the best, but I didn't know as much as you. You are too modest, Doctor. Otto looked at the machine in front of him, with a gleam of expectation in his eyes. As long as the experiment succeeds, we can master the constant energy, like the sun. Then, it will definitely benefit mankind. With endless energy, many wars will be avoided. Lunchtime came in a blink of an eye. Otto invited Peter to have lunch. Peter still felt that he should remind Otto. Such a person should not become a villain. Sorry, Doctor, do you think you can stabilize the nuclear reaction? Otherwise, what do you think I have been talking about for an hour and a half? This is my life's work. After saying this, Otto teased his wife again. This kid thinks I will blow up the whole of New York. Rose handed a cup of coffee to Peter, smiling and saying, his research is impeccable. You will know when you come to watch the experiment tomorrow. She changed the subject and asked Peter, let's talk about you. Young man, do you have a girlfriend? Is the topic changing so quickly? At the same time, Osborn's office. Enough. Enough. Norman Osborn was shirtless, and the body reflected in the mirror was pale and thin, quite sick. The expression on his face was sad. It was as if he was begging himself in the mirror. Please, please, we have harmed a lot of people. We can't go on. Shut up. The Green Goblin in the mirror had a gloomy expression. Are you willing to give up all this? Reputation? Wealth? Advertisement, you saw it just now. Peter's young and strong body. As long as you get the blood of Spider-Woman, you can recover. Think about Harry. Think about your son. He is still so young. He has to live. Shut up. Osborn roared, almost collapsed, and when he was exhausted, the expression on his face was completely different from before, becoming hideous and terrifying. Since Spider-Woman won't come out, find a way to force her out. After that, he laughed almost crazy again. At the same time, on the other side of the city, at the door of the police station, there are two people entangled in cobwebs. Needless to say, this must be the work of Spider-Woman. This kind of thing has happened frequently in the past month. Every person caught by Spider-Woman is undoubtedly a criminal. At this moment, in a luxurious manner, a man in a white suit who looks extremely fat is sitting on a recliner in front of a villa. He holds a cigar between his fingers. This huge man with only 2% fat in his 350-pound heavy body is called Wilson Fisk. Compared with the ordinary name, another name can suppress the entire New York underworld. Kingpin. Unlike other gang leaders, he does not need so many men to protect him. Because of his childhood experience, he has learned fighting, all kinds of fighting, and his strength can reach the peak of ordinary humans. At least, it is not difficult for him to break a concrete wall with one punch. Kingpin smokes a cigar while looking at the photos on his mobile phone. That is his deceased wife and daughter. Resurrection from the dead is unrealistic, but parallel time and space are very scientific. He has been working with scientists for many years, with the goal of opening the door to parallel time and space. By then, he will definitely see his wife and daughter again. Just as Jean Bing was daydreaming, a subordinate hurried over. Jean Bing, damn it, our business has been destroyed again. It's the Punisher and Spider-Woman who are making trouble. With them, Our business has suffered a lot of losses. Be patient. As the king of the underworld, Jin Bing will not easily reveal his emotions. I have already thought about how to deal with them. As soon as the voice fell, huge amounts of wind and waves swept down from the sky, blowing waves on the lawn of the entire manor. Huge amounts of machines turned and roared. A man wearing a bird head mask landed on the lawn. He took off the mask, revealing a gloomy face of a middle-aged man. Jin Bing nodded slightly. Let me introduce you. This is Mr. Adrian Toombs, a former electrical engineer, but I think he prefers you to call him by his new name, Vulture. Chapter 29. Adrian Toombs. He was originally just an electrical engineer. He had a dream of flight since he was a child. For this reason, he conducted countless experiments, but each experiment consumed huge amounts of money, and soon his capital chain was broken, until a businessman appeared to invest in his experiment. Not long after, Adrian finally made an armor that could fly, just when he wanted to share this good news with the businessman who invested in him. But he found that the other party had taken his scientific research results for himself and sold them to certain countries as military weapons. Adrian didn't want his dream to be built on the pain of war, and the angry businessman reported Adrian for treason, and then he was put in prison. But the businessman didn't find the flight mecha developed by Adrian. It turned out that Adrian had taken the mecha into prison a long time ago. This mecha not only allows Adrian to fly, but also strengthens his endurance, strength, speed, and reaction ability, turning him into a Superman. With this set of equipment, he also successfully escaped from prison, and the businessman who framed him was also cruelly tortured to death by him. After that, he used this equipment to do several horrific secret crushes, and many people died in his hands. Yes, Adrian's temperament changed drastically, and he was addicted to crime and the pleasure of revenge on society. Perhaps Adrian, who couldn't bear to use his scientific research results for war, died the moment he entered prison. And the one who survived was Vulture. Shortly after he was released from prison, Vulture, the king of crime in New York, found him and provided money to upgrade Adrian's equipment. The requirement was to help Kingpin solve a difficult problem. At this moment, Kingpin needed him. The above partly quoted the comic setting. Mr. Adrian, Kingpin said, have a good rest. Tomorrow may be your final battle with Spider-Woman and Punisher. Vulture's gloomy eyes swept over Kingpin. Don't worry, I've seen their videos. A guy who can only swing in the sky, and a guy who can't fly. Fighting with me, they can't even hit me. Don't forget our agreement, Kingpin. If you can't keep your promise, I can't promise to do something to hurt you. Faced with Vulture's threat, King didn't care, but smiled and said, don't worry, as long as you solve them, I will build the best mechanical laboratory in the world for you, and I will also buy weapons produced by Stark Industries to load on your mecha. But the prerequisite is to solve them. Queens, New York. Peter, who came back from Osborne Company, was watching TV with a big bucket of Häagen-Dazs. If you have money, you must enjoy life. The TV was broadcasting news about Tony Stark. The dignified host explained the whole incident. At present, Tony Stark, the boss of Stark Industries, is still missing. According to relevant experts, he is likely to have died in the hands of terrorists. Peter shrugged his shoulders. This news was expected by him. Tony was backstabbed by his subordinates and was set up. Advertisement the last time they met, Peter installed a tracker on him. At present, Peter can be said to be the only one who knows Tony's exact location. But considering that Tony wants to become Iron Man, he did not rescue him, or wait until Mark-I is built before rescuing him. At this time, Peter suddenly noticed that the System Points Mall was refreshed. Since getting the Bull Talisman, strength potions and endurance potions can no longer be refreshed. Instead, there are flight potions and one-time precognition potions. As the name suggests, the flight potion gains 3 hours of flight ability after use. But the speed of flight is not fast, but for Peter who has the Rabbit Talisman, it doesn't matter. As for the precognition potion, the system introduction is a bit abstract. The user can see the ending of a certain character and predict the character randomly. It could be himself, someone else, or anyone he meets on the road. To buy 2 potions, you need 200 points each, and the predictive potion can only be purchased once. At this moment in a cave somewhere in Afghanistan, Tony is hammering his armor. Clang, 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 clang. Until now he can't believe this fact. Because he listened to Obadiah Stany's advice and went to Afghanistan in person to test the power of missiles, he was caught by terrorists. And the weapons used by these terrorists actually came from his company. What's more desperate is that compared to more than 10 days ago, he has an extra device on his chest. Because there are many shrapnel in his body, Ethan, who was also imprisoned by terrorists, used an electromagnet to connect a car battery to make a simple device to save his life. Tony was unwilling to be imprisoned here for the rest of his life, so he was secretly building a set of armor. Damn it. Damn Superman. Homelander. Where are you all? And that Punisher. It seems that we have met once before. Can't you come and save me? Thinking back on the past few days, being beaten and force-fed with water, this place is simply hell. He couldn't wait to leave here. What's more terrible is that the battery in his chest relies on magnetic force to hang the shrapnel rushing to his internal organs. But this can only delay his death. What he needs now is surgery and treatment. He must leave here as soon as possible. Thinking of this, he began to swing the hammer in his hand again. Ding, 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 ding. Chapter 30. The next morning, Peter was invited to participate in Dr. Otto's nuclear fusion experiment. This was an experiment that was doomed to fail. He went there because he wanted to change Otto's ending. He couldn't watch Otto turn into Dr. Octopus and then kill him mercilessly just to earn points. That's not Peter's character. In the morning, because of the importance of Otto's experiment, a large number of reporters gathered in the laboratory of Osborne Company. Unexpectedly, Norman Osborn was not present for such a major project. Almost everyone was there. Otto began to introduce. Welcome everyone to come here in your busy schedule. Today, you will witness the birth of a new energy source. A safe, permanent, and sustainable energy source that will provide cheap electricity to everyone in the world. Now, let me introduce my assistant. As he said this, he took off a piece of white cloth, and 4 metal mechanical devices like octopus tentacles appeared in front of everyone. These 4 mechanical arms are designed to handle nuclear integrate. High temperature and magnetism have no effect on them. Otto fixed the 4 mechanical arms on his body. A neural sensor device like a spine was firmly attached to his back. The next second, the mechanical arms began to move according to Otto's wishes. As flexible as human arms. My brain controls these arms with artificial intelligence through neural links, and nanoneural wires directly transmit instructions. Let me use them to work in extremely dangerous situations. A reporter couldn't help but ask, since these tentacles have artificial intelligence, aren't you worried that they will control you? Otto smiled slightly. That's a good question. So I developed a suppression chip to protect my brain. Soon, Otto began his research. Under the control of the mechanical arm, a weak fireball was born in the huge device in front of him. Then the fireball began to grow rapidly. The appearance of the fireball was reflected in Otto's sunglasses. He couldn't help but say, "The power of the sun is in my hands." Until this moment, everything was within Peter's expectations. Suddenly his brain buzzed. Spider telepathy. The next second, the nuclear reaction suddenly went out of control, and the magnetic force generated by the fireball suddenly increased. The necklaces on the necks of the reporters in the front row flew in. The whole laboratory was in chaos, because the walls of the laboratory were blocked with iron sheets. At this moment, the iron sheets close to the wall were already creaking. Suddenly, with a bang, a piece of iron sheet flew towards the source of the nuclear reaction due to the strong magnetic force. Stop it! In the chaos, someone shouted at Otto. Advertisement, it's okay. This is a normal reaction. I can't control it. Otto spent half his life on this experiment. Now letting him give up is equivalent to asking for half his life. As the reaction became more and more intense, a huge amount of iron sheet swept towards Rose. At this moment, the world seemed to stop. Peter, who had already changed his clothes, saved Rose as quickly as possible. This will definitely change the ending of Dr. Octopus. With the bond of his family, Otto should not be so easily controlled by the tentacles on his body. However, several pictures suddenly appeared in Peter's mind. This is the effect of the predictive potion, and he saw Rose's ending. In the picture, Otto, who was controlled by the tentacles, killed his wife in his sleep. Damn! Peter hugged Rose and turned off the power of the entire nuclear reactor. Then he took Rose to the UK as quickly as possible. The whole process took only a few seconds. On the way out of New York, he also saw Gwen fighting Vulture. Are you in such a hurry today? Peter cursed inwardly. Ms. Rose, stay here. Otto has been controlled by the mechanical arm he invented. If you want him to be safe, stay here. After that, Peter left a spider tracker on her. The next second he was on his way back to New York. The system prompt sound also sounded here. Do you have activated a new mission? Save Otto Octavian. Although you are a villain superhero, you can easily kill criminals without any psychological burden. but this does not mean that you are a bad person. The mission reward is 10,000 points. One opportunity for ability upgrade. You have activated a new mission, Gwen's transformation. As a superhero, Gwen always adheres to the principle of not killing criminals, but she does not understand the truth that if you don't cut the grass at the root, it will grow again in the spring breeze. If the bad guys are not removed, they will only harm the good people. Please note that this mission is a long-term mission, and the activation of the mission reward begins. You have a chance to strengthen the spell. Note that the cow spell has a validity period of 3 months, and it will disappear once the time limit is reached even after strengthening. Do you still need to think about it? Strengthen the rabbit spell. At the moment when the rabbit spell was strengthened, Peter clearly felt that the things around him became slower. The cars driving on the highway seemed to be stationary. However, the sound of the system has not stopped. You have a new mission, save Gwen. Your girl is fighting the bad guys. She has just become a hero and lacks combat experience. She is overwhelmed by Vulture. Please kill Vulture and save Gwen. The mission reward is 20,000 points. Chapter 31. Peter moved quickly. He began to calculate the existing points in his mind. After a month, he now has a total of 40,000 points. There are 20,000 points for the Green Goblin mission. There are 10,000 points for the Auto mission. There are 20,000 points for the Vulture mission. As long as these missions are completed, my points will be accumulated to 90,000. There is only 110,000 points away from buying the Homelander template. At the moment, another mechanical electronic sound rang in my ears. You have a new mission. Save the new Iron Man? As your future long-term source of income, Tony Stark is like wool to you. Please save Tony before he dies. The mission reward is 20,000 points. I wish you success. Too much. Too much. The dense electronic sound resounded in Peter's ears. But he didn't have time to think about these, to calculate these. The most urgent thing is to rush to Gwen. 2 minutes ago, outside Osborn Company, Norman Osborn was dressed neatly, with a crazy look in his eyes. At this moment, it didn't matter even if Otto blew up the entire company, because he found the trace of Spider-Woman. In another block in New York City, Gwen, wearing a black and white combat suit, was using Cobweb to avoid Vulture's steel wings. As the boss of a big company, it was not difficult for Osborn to know this news. A little blood, just a little blood is enough. Green Goblin jumped down from a 100-meter-high building and landed steadily on the Batflight. At this moment, on a busy street, the surrounding buildings have been destroyed by Vulture's hard wings. Although Gwen is Spider-Man, she has put all her skill points on agility. When she encounters such a powerful opponent, she has no idea what to do for a while. Every time she approaches, the opponent's steel wings will sweep over. Compared to a month ago, Gwen feels that both her combat skills and the use of Cobweb have improved. She had been trying to wrap the opponent with Cobweb, but she had no idea how to do it, so she could only passively avoid Vulture's attack. The sound of the battle soon attracted the New York police, and there were even helicopters hovering in the sky. Although Vulture was not afraid, the battle also made him irritable. Suddenly, he noticed a crying little girl falling down below. Hey, Spider-Woman, you have always been doing things to uphold justice, so when facing innocent passers-by, will you save them? A grenade was thrown from the air. No, Gwen shouted. Launch Cobweb stuck to the grenade, and then swung it into the air, like throwing a hammer. Advertisement with a bang. A violent explosion sounded in the air. The aftermath of the explosion also made Gwen lose balance and was blown away. Good opportunity. The alloy wings swooped down from the sky, aiming at Gwen's stomach to cut her in half. Gwen wanted to resist and struggle, but she couldn't find a leverage point at all. Goodbye, Spider-Woman. Gwen's heart was about to explode. The fear of death made her blue eyes lose their anxiety, and her pupils shrank to pinholes. File size. I haven't said goodbye to my father yet, and I haven't heard Peter's confession yet. For this kind of thing, boys should take the initiative. Gwen couldn't face the threat of death, and her eyes were tightly closed. However, the scene of being cut in half in her imagination did not appear. She felt a gust of wind and waves coming. The next second, she was held in someone's arms. Punisher! Gwen was shocked, and only realized that she was saved by the Punisher. Peter put Gwen down and looked at Vulture not far away with a stern look. You actually appeared together, haha. Just save me trouble. I can fly and stand in an invincible position. How can you defeat me? Gwen also reminded behind her. Be careful. He is very fast, and his wings are sharp. Peter took out a cigarette from his arms. Light it slowly. It's not to show off, but just to make my mind clearer. This is provided by the system. After taking a puff, the brain will react faster. Mainly because of the enhancement of the rabbit spell just now, Peter is a little uncomfortable. He took a puff and stomped out the cigarette. What a waste. Vulture stared at Peter with gloomy eyes. This will be the last puff of your life. The next second, he leaned down and tried to destroy everything with his steel wings. However, the moment he moved, Peter disappeared. From Peter's perspective, Vulture hardly moved. He was too slow. Bang, bang, bang. The three most critical connection points on the Vulture flight were destroyed by bullets. The next second, Vulture felt dizzy. When he reacted, he was being dragged into the sky by a huge force. Above the whole New York. Above the whole America. At this moment, he couldn't believe his eyes. You can actually fly. Are you surprised? Vulture tried to struggle, but the mecha on his body seemed to be scrapped. No response at all. The power device has been destroyed, and the wings that were just nimble just now are now a large piece of heavy scrap metal. Chapter 32. Stop! Vulture's eyes were full of fear. At this moment, he felt the fear of death for the first time. Too high. It's too high here. The air around him became cold, and breathing became difficult. Vulture's body trembled uncontrollably due to fear and cold. He never thought that this day would come. Although he knew that there was Superman in the world, Superman only appeared a few times a year. There was Homelander in the world, but Homelander only attacked ordinary people with low combat effectiveness. So he never thought that besides these two, there was someone who could deal with him. He is Vulture. He can fly. Damn Kingpin. He clearly said that the Punisher can't fly. Then how to explain it now? Listen to me, Punisher. I have money. I have a lot of money. As long as you let me go, all the money is yours. Let me go. Even if you send me to jail, it doesn't matter. Listen, I want to go to jail. Let me go. Suddenly Peter stopped. He had already reached his limit of flight. Although he was blessed by the bull spell, he was still just an ordinary person anyway. Flight was too high and made him physically uncomfortable. Vulture thought Peter was going to let him go. Thank God. Thank you. I promise I will never mess with you again. I will never appear in front of you again. Yes, you have no chance. Peter finished speaking and loosened his hand, holding Vulture little by little. Vulture was sweating coldly, and his back was wet with sweat. No, 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 no. Punisher, you can't do this. You are a superhero. You can't do this. Peter sneered. Before dealing with me, didn't you know my style of doing things in advance? Superheroes have moral constraints, and I don't talk about morality. After speaking, Peter completely let go of his hand. Vulture, tied with heavy metal wings, fell like a meteor. Ah! He roared in the air. If he gave her a chance to start over, he would never mess with the Punisher. He was too fierce. He doesn't even look like a hero fighting crime. Maybe he just chose this path to kill people. With a bang, smoke and dust rose. A big hole was smashed in the cement road of Purple Rose Street. Various parts of the mechanical wings were scattered all over the ground. Vulture was lying on the ground, with the wings piercing him under him. This was his most proud invention, but now it became the cause of his death. The street was in chaos. Scattered pedestrians, armed policemen, and Gwen, who was a little confused. With a bang, Peter fell from the sky and looked at everything around him indifferently. Spider-Woman, you are too weak, Peter said coldly. Advertisement, facing an enemy stronger than you. The only thing you have to do is run away. It was not intentional to attack Gwen, but it was too dangerous this time. If he hadn't arrived in time, Gwen would definitely be in danger of her life. Gwen didn't say anything. She wanted to refute, but she didn't know how to refute. Because the Punisher was right. Punisher, you shouldn't kill people. The law will punish these bad guys instead of lynching them. Peter chuckled. I will only follow the rules made by people who are stronger than me. Otherwise, my rules are the rules. He looked at Vulture's body. He is guilty. If I say he is not guilty, he is not guilty. He is not guilty. If I say he is guilty, he is guilty. Spider-Woman, do you think that fighting criminals on the street and hanging them in front of the police station is justice? You are still far from true justice. Not because of the mission. Peter wanted to communicate with Gwen a long time ago. Gwen, or most Spider-Man, is always too kind. It's okay to be kind to good people, but also to opponents. In the comics, Spider-Man has sent various enemies to prison many times. What is the result? The enemies appear again and again, and finally form a team with the purpose of dealing with him. Then what is the meaning of everything Spider-Man has done before? Missing a date, letting the family live in poverty, being criticized by the newspaper boss. Life is so unsatisfactory. The purpose is to send the enemy to prison, and then wait for them to rest in prison for a while, and then do it all over again? What is the difference between this and that self-righteous guy in Gotham? No, not as good as him. At least Mr. Wayne is not short of money. So, killing the enemy is the best way to uphold justice. Gwen was confused for a moment after listening to the Punisher's words. Peter was about to leave. Suddenly, his figure moved at high speed and avoided the flying pumpkin bomb. Spider telepathy is really useful. Similarly, Gwen also sensed the danger. Looking up to the sky, a guy wearing a green demon mask was stepping on the flight device and floating in the air. Spider-Woman. You little bug, let me suck your blood. Gwen frowned behind the mask. Damn, why are there so many monsters? She fired Cobweb and shot at Green Goblin, but was easily dodged. Green Goblin laughed wildly. Even if I blow you to pieces, I can still get your blood. Instantly, more than a dozen pumpkin bombs rolled down. Gwen quickly fired Cobweb and left. Fortunately, she was agile and dodged all the attacks. And several policemen were rescued by Peter. When they reacted, they were already more than 10 kilometers away. Before, Peter gave the right to choose to Osborn. If he didn't kill anyone within 10 days, Peter would find a way to get rid of the Green Goblin in his body. Now it seems that the Green Goblin has penetrated into his bones. It's impossible not to kill. Chapter 33. Spider-Woman, you can't beat him. Peter said this in a cold tone. Gwen was very angry. She was very strong-willed. But at this moment, the Punisher was right. She was indeed no match for Green Goblin, although she had super strength, speed, and reaction ability. But without the web shooters given by Peter, she couldn't even swing in the air. After all, she was just a high school student. She had never learned to fight, and when facing a slightly stronger opponent, she didn't even know where to start. If your opponent can stay in the air with the help of the flight device, then use your cobweb to stick something and hit his flight device. Definitely, I don't need to go through so much trouble to deal with him. You have nothing to do here. Stay away, don't make trouble for me. Peter's voice was very calm from beginning to end, and with the calmness, there was indifference. Green Goblin was extremely angry. Just as he was about to get Spider-Woman's blood, a Punisher came to mess with him. Peter didn't say much. The figure suddenly soared into the air, so fast that it even left a mock ring on the ground. The next second, Green Goblin felt his figure shake, and before he could react, he was thrown into the air. Fast. Too fast. There was no way to take any countermeasures. Without a foothold in the air, Green Goblin could not control himself at all. The bat flyer under his feet had been broken into 2 halves by Peter. Before Green Goblin landed, Peter instantly appeared above him. Without giving him a chance to react, he stepped hard on him. Bang! Green Goblin fell to the ground. Even with the protection of the armor, he was broken in many places all over his body. Because of the injection of serum, the injury will heal automatically in a few days. But Peter did not intend to give him a chance to recover. Even if he has a physical fitness far beyond that of ordinary people, he will die if the bullet hits his brain. At this moment, Gwen, who was standing aside, was stunned. She stared blankly at everything in front of her. That's it. It's over? Solved so quickly? It only took 1 or 2 minutes after the Punisher appeared. He solved Vulture and Green Goblin, 2 terrifying guys with amazing combat power. There is no harm without comparison. Gwen felt that she was like a newborn baby in front of the Punisher. Then Peter walked in front of Green Goblin, looked down at him, and then took out a pistol from behind, pointed at Green Goblin's head. Even if Osborn's evil personality was killed, there was no guarantee when it would appear again. So, the best solution is to shoot him. Gwen couldn't believe that the Punisher actually planned to kill Green Goblin in public. This was in great conflict with her philosophy. No, you can't do this. Gwen stood in front of Green Goblin. Advertisement, what's wrong? Peter said indifferently. You can't kill him. You should hand him over to the law. Believe me, the Punisher. The law will punish him. If everyone doesn't follow the law, the world will be destroyed. Influenced by her father, Gwen insisted that all criminals should be handed over to the law. Peter silently lit a cigarette. Although it was troublesome, it didn't matter. A month ago, Peter was still afraid of Green Goblin. At this moment, He was no longer a threat. People can't teach people, but things can teach people. If you want Gwen's attitude to change, you must let her experience regret once. Everyone, whether a hero or an ordinary person, has a rule in their hearts that cannot be crossed. But this rule will change imperceptibly. No one is unchanging. So, forget it this time. Then let the police deal with him. Peter flew up to the sky with an expressionless face, looking down at everyone, including Gwen. If the law you believe in does not give the criminal the punishment he deserves, will you regret stopping me today? If he comes out to hurt people again, can you bear the corresponding responsibility? Gwen was unsure. Facing such a person with a strong aura and super strength, no one could remain calm in front of him. But she firmly believed that Green Goblin would definitely get the punishment he deserved. The court would definitely sentence him to death. Gwen couldn't help but sigh when she thought of this. It would be great if all men in the world were like Peter. He is gentle, kind, not aggressive, and he will definitely stand firmly on his side. Bang! The sonic boom sounded, and the Punisher disappeared on the spot. Gwen suddenly felt the pressure drop and let out a long breath. Not only Gwen, almost everyone gave the same reaction. The Punisher's oppression is really too strong. After Peter left, everyone's attention was on Green Goblin. Look at this street. Look at the shops around. Green Goblin's dozen bombs turned all the beautiful things into dust. George, who had just arrived at the scene, was also relieved. Fortunately, the Punisher did not kill Green Goblin. Such a serious thing happened. He couldn't take two bodies back to report. George stepped forward. He took off the terrifying mask of Green Goblin. The surrounding reporters took pictures frantically as soon as they saw it. George was stunned. The reporter who took the photo was also stunned. Gwen was also stunned. No one thought that he was behind the mask. The boss of a listed company, a famous nanotechnology scientist. Norman Osborn? Chapter 34. Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock. This is a normal school day for Midtown Tech High School. But Peter and Gwen did not appear on campus. In a taxi, the two leaned against each other. Queens was far away from the court where Green Goblin was being tried. Because they got up early, they could only catch up on sleep in the car. Suddenly Peter woke up because the mechanical sound of the system rang in his ears. You have completed the task and saved Gwen. Reward points of 20,000 points. Hidden score is turned on. Past tragic experiences are not a reason for a person to embark on a criminal path. Revenge, killing the one who once persecuted you. This is a hero. Bullying, humiliating those innocent ordinary people. You are a criminal. Because you experienced extreme despair before Vulture died, the evaluation score is 2,000, which can be converted into a special skill. Convert or not. Convert. Peter chose to gamble without hesitation, mainly curious about what this special ability is. You have obtained a special skill, changing clothes. Next time you change your identity, you don't need to find the nearest bathroom. As long as you are in a place where no one can see you, you can complete the change with just a thought. Peter didn't react much. He thought he could open the spell, but it's better to have this skill than not. What really makes Peter happy is that the exchange points have accumulated to 60,000. From this point of view, it seems that the exchange of Homelander template is not far away. To be honest, Peter is very strong now, but not that strong. While Gwen was sleeping, he made a simple calculation in his mind. First of all, his super speed comes from the Rabbit spell, which is his permanent ability. The power comes from the Bull spell, and the Bull spell has less than 2 months left. The Bull spell not only provides him with power, but also enhances his physical strength. The effect of force is mutual. If it is not enhanced, with his ordinary physical fitness, it is impossible to smash a wall with one punch. Similarly, endurance and cardiopulmonary function have also been greatly enhanced. Advertisement otherwise, he would not be able to run so far. Then there is flight ability, which is nothing to say, and comes from flight potion. Finally, there are Yin Shuangying's various amazing skills. Very strong, but not that strong. So the Homelander template must be exchanged, at least at that level. The physical fitness belongs to the category of Superman. A few days ago, when Peter was dragging Vulture flight, he felt uncomfortable when he encountered high altitude and hypoxia. The main reason is because of insufficient physical fitness. Peter couldn't help but sigh. The road is long and difficult. At present, there are still many shortcomings, such as mental attacks. Although he is very fast, if he needs Professor Charles Mutant, he will probably have to give up. At this time, the taxi bumped and woke Gwen up. Peter, why didn't you take a good rest? I was woken up by someone snoring. Gwen was stunned and elbowed Peter. I don't snore. The reason why the two were able to visit this trial was thanks to Gwen's father. Relying on his relationship, the two were able to enter the Supreme Court. I believe Osborn will get the punishment he deserves. He killed so many innocent people, and he will definitely be sentenced to death, Gwen said bitterly. I can't believe that the boss of a big company is such a person. I met him before and thought he was a gentleman. Peter shook his head and gave a different opinion. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Osborn's company has created a lot of economic development in New York. The presidential campaign requires a lot of financial support, and Osborn is the financial sponsor of these politicians. In short, I feel that this trial may be beyond our expectations. Gwen's eyes widened. Peter, do you think so too? Also, who else thinks so? Nothing. Gwen never thought that Peter would have the same opinion as the Punisher. This shook her original idea a little. No, it won't be like this. Just wait and see, Peter. I bet Green Goblin will get the punishment he deserves. If you lose, have lunch with me. I know a good restaurant. Peter raised his eyebrows. Do you want to bet? Okay. If I win, I will invite beautiful Miss Gwen to lunch. The taxi arrived at the destination soon. Entering the court, the trial started soon. The whole court was full of people, and you really couldn't get in without some connections. But this is also common sense. It is human nature to eat melons, and Norman Osborn is one of the most famous entrepreneurs in America. Silence. Court. After the court procedure was completed, the judge in a suit looked at Osborn in the defendant's seat. Mr. Osborn, there are many accusations against you, including that you bombed many universities and high schools in New York, causing heavy casualties, harming citizens, and causing social panic. Do you have any doubts about this? Chapter 35. Norman Osborn was wearing a wrinkled suit, looking listless and messy-haired. He looked like he hadn't slept for many days. His eyes were extremely tired, like an old man. Based on his current appearance, no one would believe that he was the Green Goblin who was wreaking havoc and killing people in the city. Facing the judge's question, Osborn did not answer. Instead, the lawyer in front of him stood up. The lawyer in a high-end suit gave people an elite feeling. Mr. Judge, my client has a document to hand in. The lawyer handed over a document with an official seal. My client, Mr. Norman Osborn, has been diagnosed with severe schizophrenia after the hospital's appraisal. Everything was done by another personality, not Mr. Osborn's subjective will. He doesn't even know what happened. As soon as this was said, the court was in an uproar. Everyone was talking about it. The families of the murdered students cried and loudly accused Osborn of being a liar. Even Gwen found it incredible. How can it be like this? She had a bad idea in her mind. Ignoring the noise at the scene, the lawyer raised his voice by 8 degrees and continued. In fact, Mr. Osborn is not only not a bad person, but a philanthropist. He founded a school, devoted himself to scientific research, and created a large number of jobs across the United States. He is a respectable person. These days, he has also been tortured and persecuted by another personality. At the same time, my client is also a vegetarian, a plant protector, has gender identity disorder, and a transvestite. The lawyer pressed more than a dozen buffs on Osborn. Oh? A question mark appeared in the minds of everyone in the audience. However, the trial that made everyone feel even more incredible came. The judge picked up the gavel and hammered it, making the noisy court silent. Given the hospital's proof, this court declares Norman Osborn not guilty, but based on the fact that Mr. Osborn's other personality was rebellious, he can only be treated and detained in a medical institution for the rest of his life. At this point, the trial ended. Everyone who was watching the trial was dumbfounded. How could it be like this? This is unfair. He is the murderer of my child. The families of the students who suffered cried and shouted. Obviously, the result of this trial did not meet their expectations. Such an executioner with blood on his hands was released just like that? However, no one cared about their shouting. Why is this happening? Gwen, with blonde hair, was confused at the moment, and she once again remembered what the Punisher said. Peter, why is this happening? Green Goblin killed so many people and destroyed so many families. Why doesn't the law sentence him to death? Sentencing him to a medical institution, isn't that equivalent to no punishment? This verdict basically means that Osborn will go in to live out his retirement. Peter hugged the girl beside him and let her head rest on his shoulder. Advertisement, Gwen. Many times, reality is not as beautiful as described in textbooks. Osborn is the leader of a large company with many interests connected. His death is not in the interests of those behind him. Gwen was a little indignant, especially after seeing the victim's family crying. The values she had shaped for 18 years have already shown signs of collapse. Peter sighed. I understand your feelings, Gwen, but we can't do anything about this kind of thing, right? Gwen didn't say anything else. She is different from ordinary people. She is Spider-Man. When the Punisher wanted to kill Green Goblin a few days ago, she stood up to stop him and said that we should believe in the law and the police. But now, such a heinous guy has received such a painless punishment. It's a joke. Gwen couldn't accept it in her heart and even regretted it a little. The Punisher's words seemed to still ring in her ears. If the law you believe in does not give the criminal the punishment he deserves, will you regret stopping me today? If he comes out to hurt people again, can you bear the corresponding responsibility? Gwen was confused. Just as the Punisher said, if Green Goblin comes out to hurt people again, undoubtedly, she has to bear part of the responsibility. Peter, do you think Spider-Woman did something wrong? Peter shook his head and said, don't punish yourself for other people's mistakes. You just do what you think is right. What happens to Green Goblin in the future has nothing to do with you. However, there is a saying that is indeed correct. If the bad guys are not eliminated, the good guys will suffer. After listening to Peter's words, Gwen felt much better. Thank you, Peter. Gwen lay in Peter's arms, like a docile little kitten. Peter was thinking about another thing in his heart. Now he began to hesitate again about whether to kill Osborn. 20,000 points are indeed very attractive, but Peter didn't know what choice to make for a while. When he was young, he went to Osborn's house. The other party had no airs of a rich and successful person. He was willing to turn down meetings to play with Harry and Peter. He was an impeccable good man, and Green Goblin was an out-and-out criminal. It was like a combination of Nightingale and Seidler. One was good to death, and the other was bad. Sure enough, I still couldn't hesitate. If I had ignored Gwen's obstruction a few days ago and shot Green Goblin, then he wouldn't be as entangled as he is now. At this time, the system's voice sounded again. Long-term mission, Gwen's transformation, and phased goals have been achieved. Chapter 36. Long-term mission, Gwen's transformation, and phased goals have been achieved. You have acquired a special skill, toxicity reduction. Any chemical reagent that is toxic enough to kill you will have no effect on you, and the toxicity can be displayed in front of you. If you eat highly toxic food, your poison resistance will be improved. Peter was slightly stunned. There is such a reward? He immediately pulled Gwen to find a Chinese restaurant and asked the waiter for a raw bean. He took a bite. The system's voice sounded in his ears. Poison resistance +1. Feeling comfortable, Peter's curiosity was completely satisfied. Although this skill is a bit useless, it is still better to have it than not. Peter, when did you become interested in Chinese food? Gwen asked absent-mindedly, and at this moment, all she could think about was Green Goblin. I've always liked it. After high school, we can go to the East together. There are so many delicious foods there. After staying there for a while, I believe you will never want to eat white food again. The Parker family's eating habits have changed a lot over the years. For example, in a week, they have to eat Chinese food at least 4 days. There are even some foods that are not common in America, such as spicy hot pot, barbecue, dumplings, etc. At first, it was just to take care of Peter's diet, and in the end, the whole family liked Chinese food. Okay, Gwen, don't worry about Green Goblin. It's best if Osborn is locked up for life. If he dares to come out and do bad things again, Spider-Woman will definitely stop him. Gwen's eyes lit up. You're right, Peter. If Green Goblin dares to do evil again next time, I bet Spider-Woman will never let him go easily. The two chatted and ate. Suddenly, someone shouted in the restaurant. Oh my God, someone is going to jump off the building. Everyone went out after hearing the news, and Peter and Gwen also went out. On the roof of a tall building, a middle-aged black man wearing glasses was about to jump down. If he took another step forward, he would fall from the building and break into pieces. The man's name was Max Dillon, and like the deceased vulture, he was an electrical engineer. A single parent, neglected childhood made him sensitive, suspicious, irritable, and at the same time, he was very inferior. At work, he had no friends. In love, he was alone. In family affection, both his parents died. Such a tragic life made him see no hope. He worked at Osborn Company and had a good salary, but with the exposure of Norman Osborn being the Green Goblin, the company had a major reshuffle. A leader who usually disliked him became his immediate superior. This made him very depressed at work every day. I wanted to die every day at work. Today, At the moment, after finishing his last lunch, he was going to look for his deceased mother. Advertisement meanwhile. Under the building. "Oh, Peter, I seem to have eaten something bad. I need to go to the bathroom. Go quickly." Peter saw through Gwen's thoughts at a glance, but did not stop him. 2 minutes later, just as Max was about to jump off the building, a voice called him from behind. "Hey man, what's wrong with you? Want to jump off the building? What are you thinking? There are so many good things in the world that you haven't experienced, so why are you so anxious to leave? Be positive about life. Even if you jump, I will use Cobweb to rescue you." Spider-Woman's voice sounded like heavenly music in Max's ears. The more inferior people are, the more they desire to be noticed. Max has wanted to be valued by others since he was a child. Who is the person standing in front of him now? It's Spider-Woman. It's the superhero that is often broadcast on TV. Max is extremely excited at this moment. The idea of committing suicide has disappeared. It's not that no one cares about him. A big shot like Spider-Woman would care about his life or death. "Can you sign an autograph for me?" Max said excitedly. Definitely." Gwen wrote Spider-Woman's name on the first page of Max's diary in a graceful handwriting. "Live well, buddy. I still have to save the world. I won't chat with you anymore. I hope you can live more actively next time I see you." After that, Spider-Woman launched the cobweb and swung away. Max was left excited and shouted at her. "Spider-Woman, I will be your fan from now on." Max was happy from the bottom of his heart. It feels so good to be valued, especially when the other party is a famous big shot. This made him find the meaning of life at once. After a while, Gwen appeared beside Peter. "That's strange. Maybe I'm not used to Chinese food." "Peter." "Miss Gwen, please don't blame the Chinese food for your upset stomach. Hee. There's still a lot of food left. Let's continue eating." Since becoming a superhero, Gwen's appetite has been surprisingly large. But her figure hasn't changed much. She's even more symmetrical than before. Chapter 37. In the sanatorium, Norman Osborn was repeatedly imprisoned in a single-family courtyard. It is located in the suburbs of New York City, with pleasant scenery, food, and wine. Rather than being imprisoned, it is better to say that he is on vacation. But this vacation is not free. Osborn sat in the bedroom, which was empty, and there was not even a bed. There was only a mirror of the same height. Osborn sat cross-legged on the floor, looking at himself in the mirror. Old, haggard, tortured beyond recognition, he has been shrouded in the shadow of a family genetic disease since he was a child. Fear always looms in his heart. When he was a teenager, he witnessed his father's death with his own eyes. This is the inner demon he cannot overcome. Every day, every year older, the inner demon becomes more serious. Even if he becomes an expert in the field of biology, it is still difficult to cure his stubborn illness. The inner demon has completely become another personality of Norman Osborn. Green Goblin, what are you thinking? What's there to be depressed about? We are not dead yet. As long as we are alive, we can definitely heal ourselves. The Green Goblin in the mirror has a hideous face. A pair of eyes are hidden in the shadows. "No, don't try to control me." The haggard Osborn talked to him, his eyes full of bloodshot. "You be asterisk 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 D. You just want to use me to do evil. Once I cure the disease, the first to die will be you." The Green Goblin shouted angrily. "Then you just wait to die. Feel the aging of your body bit by bit. Look at Osborn Company. Everything you created is plundered by others. It won't be long before your son will follow the same path as you. Osborn, now the opportunity is in front of us. What are you still hesitating about?" "You. What else is there to hesitate about?" The Green Goblin's voice is impassioned, as if it has the power to bewitch people. "As long as we can get Spider-Woman serum, we will be healthy." Think of that picture, the elderly Osborn lying in bed, next to Harry's son, your grandson. No one will die of disease. Bang! Osborn suddenly jumped up and hit his head on the glass. With a bang, the glass flew, and the broken glass like a spider web reflected Osborn's shattered face. Blood flowed along the cracks of the broken glass. His expression gradually overlapped with his own expression in the mirror. You're right. Spider-Woman, I will definitely catch you." She was stopped by the Punisher this time. She won't be so lucky next time. Just choose the right time. Choose a time when the Punisher is not here. Green Goblin Osborn laughed wildly. Sharp and terrifying. Advertisement. On the other side, Peter went home from school. He was going to deal with something he had forgotten for a long time. He put on gloves and took out brand new banknotes from his bank card. 10 dark green $100 bills with Franklin's name printed on them. Peter found a place without surveillance, changed his clothes in a second, and became the Punisher feared by all criminals in New York. Before, criminals always thought that Gotham's Batman was a madman and violent maniac, until the Punisher appeared. They knew how good Batman was. Peter took out his mobile phone and took a look at the spider locator. He was going to talk to Otto's wife, Rose. To be honest, this scientist and his wife are both pretty good people. His lifelong pursuit is not for fame and fortune, but just to contribute to all mankind. The last time they met, Otto and Rose taught Peter how to chase girls. Even if there is no systematic task, Peter doesn't want to see one of them die and the other go on the road of crime. At this moment, London, England, dark clouds covered the sky, and it would rain from time to time, and the air was quite humid. Here, you can't even see a few days of complete sunshine throughout the year. A man who looked quite sloppy kept looking outside the station. Just yesterday, he set his sights on a woman who looked to be in her 30s or 40s, well-maintained, and seemed to have encountered some difficulties. In short, none of this mattered. What mattered was that he planned to marry that woman tonight, and then sell her. Time passed by minute, and Rose walked out of the restaurant. She had been worried for the past few days. Since Otto's experiment failed, she had contacted him countless times, but received no news. And the Punisher. Rose checked the internet, and every piece of information about him was shocking. Rose didn't understand why such a person would send her to London. Frowning and thinking, she passed by an empty alley unknowingly. Suddenly a black shadow rushed out and threw her directly into the alley. Ah! Rose was startled and shouted, but her mouth was covered. Hey, I've observed you for a day. You are an illegal resident, right? No one will help you. At this moment, Peter appeared. Don't mind your own business. The man pulled out a knife and pointed it at Peter. Peter walked in front of him with a blank expression. He pulled back his hand. With a bang, the man's head was separated from his neck forever. The body stayed where it was, but the head flew far away and hit the wall, leaving a blood stain. It rolled on the ground twice and stopped moving. Chapter 38. Rose was so scared that she couldn't speak. She had never experienced such danger before, and her heart almost jumped out of her stomach. She endured the discomfort of vomiting and looked at the head of the corpse not far away. Finally, she couldn't help it and vomited with a wow. Oh my God! She felt like the sky had fallen on her. She had never thought that so many things would happen in just a few days. After vomiting, find a place to talk. Let's go to my hotel, Punisher. Looking at the burly and tall man in front of her, Rose felt terrified from the bottom of her heart, especially because the other party had just beaten a person's head into a rotten watermelon in front of her. 5 minutes later, the two came to the hotel where Rose was staying. To be honest, what happened just now caught Peter off guard. Originally, he wanted to explain this matter to Rose in his own identity. But who could have thought that in Britain, which is famous for its gentlemen, there would be people doing such dirty crimes in the daytime? It's really disgusting. It seems that there will be a new place to brush points in the future. Rose drank some water, rinsed her mouth, and then asked stiffly, "Excuse me, sir, I don't understand why you brought me here. Where is my husband Otto Octavian?" "I can't contact him," Peter said indifferently. "Ms. Rose, there is something you should know better than me. About that mechanical arm." "Mechanical arm?" Rose's face was full of confusion. The mechanical arm is a tool made by Otto to control the nuclear integrate reaction. It uses the most advanced artificial intelligence technology. In order to control this thing, Otto also specially studied the suppression chip. Otherwise, the artificial intelligence will compete with him for control of the body. Wait, Rose's eyes widened. You mean? Rose didn't finish her words. She didn't dare to imagine. Peter nodded. Yes, during the experiment that day, the suppression chip on Otto's neck was burned. I'm afraid that Otto Octavian has become a slave to the mechanical arm now. Rose took a deep breath. The uneasiness in her eyes was hard to conceal. As Otto's wife, she knows the horror of the mechanical arm better than anyone else. This thing can magnify the dark side of the user's heart. Otto had worn it before when it was still in the experimental stage. This thing actually tempted him to kidnap Osborn in order to get more financial assistance. Because the mechanical arm was not formed at that time, it could be forcibly dismantled with the help of external force. This is also the reason why Otto later developed the suppression chip. But now, for mechanical arms, each with a force of several hundred kilograms. Once Otto is controlled by him, Oh my God. Peter stood up, picked up the hat beside him, and put it on. This is also the reason why I sent you here. After all, a person controlled by a machine can do anything dangerous. But you can rest assured that I will make Otto return to normal. Advertisement Rose quickly stood up and thanked sincerely. Thank you. Thank you, Punisher. But I have another question. Why? Why did you save Otto? As far as I know, he doesn't know a friend like you. Don't thank me. I don't know you either. If you have to thank someone, thank Peter. Peter? Rose was stunned again. The kid from Midtown Science and Technology High School? Yes, he asked me to help. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother to meddle. One more thing. The tall figure wearing the same octagonal hat as the Razor Gang turned around and handed Rose $100 bills. Peter asked me to bring it here, fearing that you would be short of money here. You have completed a new achievement. As soon as he went out, a mechanical sound rang in Peter's ears. You have completed the achievement, killing like a spit. Killing like a spit. 100. The executioner with blood on his hands is not necessarily a bad person, and killing is also to save people. You have received an achievement reward. Please choose your reward from the following 3 options. Obtain 20,000 points. Obtain the right to use the Bull Talisman permanently. Obtain Observation Hockey. Observation Hockey? As an anime fan in his previous life, Peter was not unfamiliar with this term. Perception attack, perception of the number of enemies, prediction of enemy moves in a short period of time, perception of the opponent's strength. But this ability is highly overlapped with Peter's spider telepathy. Moreover, once this ability is exchanged, the Bull Talisman will be missed. Now the Bull Talisman is the main source of Peter's power. So he chose the Bull Talisman without hesitation. At the moment of choice, the Bull Talisman turned into white light and poured into Peter's body. Long-term task, collection of zodiac signs. I have nothing missing, 2/12. Peter was relieved. Seeing that the 3-month time was getting closer and closer, he was still worried about what to do when the Bull Talisman expired. Now it's good. The power of the Bull Talisman belongs to him. Suddenly Peter seemed to think of something. Open the points mall, click the search bar, and enter the zodiac sign talisman. Sure enough, the choice appeared. He was overjoyed. If you can buy a spell, it seems that you don't need to change the Homelander template. However, he was severely poured cold water the next second. You can spend 10,000 points to exchange for the rat spell. Note, the exchange of zodiac spells must be carried out in order, excluding the spells you already have. It takes 10,000 points to exchange for the rat spell, 100,000 points to exchange for the tiger spell, and 1,000,000 points to exchange for the dragon spell. And the source of the zodiac is likely to appear in the rewards of the main task, and it is not recommended to exchange with points. Peter. Gone. Back to New York. Boring. The next second, his figure disappeared from the spot. Chapter 39. In a hospital in Queens, New York. A doctor in a white coat and a mask did not enter the operating room with a scalpel as usual. This time he used an electric saw. The patient, Otto Octavian, had been hit in the head by a heavy object and had been in a coma. Because he was wearing 4 huge mechanical arms, he could not be scanned and tested. So the most urgent thing was to saw off the damn thing. Otherwise, there would be no test, let alone surgery. Entering the operating room, the doctor looked at the tentacles and joked to his colleagues. Has anyone sawed wood? The doctor started the electric saw and was about to cut the mechanical arm in front of him. Suddenly, a tentacle suddenly pulled out and directly pulled the doctor into the wall. Others in the operating room had no time to react. The tentacles had already started killing. Each tentacle seemed to be alive, stirring up chaos in the operating room. They did not stop until everyone died. After a while, Otto slowly woke up. Looking at the 4 or 5 corpses around him, he was shocked. In a panic, he left the hospital and found a remote, abandoned dock. Otto looked at the ruined things in front of him, his eyes empty and lifeless. Is my beloved Rose dead? My dream is shattered. He turned his head to look at the tentacles beside him. These terrible things should be destroyed and buried with me in the sea. Suddenly, a tentacle opened its claws, as if threatened, and emitted a slight sound wave in Otto's ears. Otto was stunned. A voice appeared in his mind, and his pupils suddenly shrank. He was familiar with this feeling. When he was developing the mechanical arm, this thing with artificial intelligence had snatched control of his body from him, reaching out to touch the suppression chip at the back of his neck. It has disappeared. Otto, let's start over. The voice in his head sounded. No. Peter is right. I miscalculated the data. Otto's eyes dimmed. But the next second his eyes changed drastically. I can't have miscalculated. Didn't the nuclear integrate succeed? Otto's voice was a little crazy. Let's start over and increase the shield. Let this experiment be bigger and stronger than the last one. Suddenly Otto's voice became low again. But we need money. The nuclear integrate experiment requires tritium, and this rare element is extremely expensive. Go rob a bank, Otto. The voice in his head sounded again. Otto refused immediately. Advertisement, no, I can't commit a crime. It's a crime not to fulfill your dream. You have to use your invention to benefit all mankind, and they will understand you. Otto's Adam's apple rolled. You are right. It's a crime not to fulfill your dream. I will succeed. The energy of the sun is in my palm. At this moment, Otto completely transformed into Dr. Octopus. Gwen, you looked a little absent-minded just now. In a commercial district not far from Midtown Tech High School, in a dessert shop, several girls gathered together. Mary Jane, whose hair was a little red, took a bite of yogurt pudding and was surprised by Gwen's reaction just now. Several people formed a band at school. Gwen was the drummer. She had never made mistakes before, but she just typed several syllables wrong. Sorry, I'm not in a good state recently. Gwen shrugged her shoulders. There were far more crimes in New York than she had imagined. For more than a month, Gwen had transformed into Spider-Woman almost every night to punish crimes in the city. But there was no way to punish them all. Car thieves, drug addicts, thefts, robberies, too many. This made her feel physically and mentally exhausted. Maybe she really needed a good rest. At this moment, Gwen suddenly perked up. This is spider telepathy. The next second, huge amounts of noise came from not far outside the dessert shop. Everyone's attention was attracted. A man wearing sunglasses and with 4 mechanical arms was robbing a bank. The tentacles grabbed the wall of the bank and then pulled it hard, and a big hole immediately appeared in the reinforced concrete wall. In front of the metal tentacles, the wall was as fragile as paper. Why are there so many monsters recently? Gwen felt a headache for a while. But now it's time for Spider-Woman to come out and solve this danger. She picked up her school bag and rushed out. Before leaving, she didn't forget to remind her friends to leave as soon as possible. Dr. Octopus put bags of banknotes into his pocket. Gwen, who had changed her clothes, suddenly appeared and kicked Dr. Octopus with Cobweb. At the same time, the tentacles also grabbed Gwen and threw her out directly. Dr. Octopus's expression was angry, and his eyes were full of resentment. The tentacles stretched out long and chased Gwen again and again. Gwen did not forget to fight back while dodging, but the power of Cobweb was much weaker than that of tentacles. Gwen remembered the tricks that Punisher taught her before and fired Cobweb, sticking a safe, and smashed it towards Dr. Octopus. Chapter 40. In the battle with Dr. Octopus, Gwen accidentally glanced and saw Peter in the crowd. Wong Defa. She couldn't help but swear. A large amount of cobwebs came out from her wrists, sealing Dr. Octopus' eyes. Gwen quickly jumped to Peter's side. She was almost crying. Peter, get out of here quickly. Too dangerous. In Gwen's opinion, the relationship with Peter is not as simple as friends. As a woman with normal physical and psychological development, she often fantasizes about her future life. Peter may become a scientist in the future, and she is a well-behaved and sensible wife. Thinking about the future married life will be warm and sweet. So she pays special attention to Peter. Don't worry, Spider-Woman. Otto and I are friends. Dr. Octopus tore open the spider web that blocked his vision. He looked at Spider-Woman angrily. At the same time, he also noticed Peter beside her. At this moment, his eyes were a little clearer. Peter, Otto, stop it. Is this what you call benefiting mankind? You are committing a crime. You have gone against your original intention. With a bang, the bag full of banknotes fell to the ground. Otto turned around and looked at the messy bank on the ground and the fearful eyes of people not far away. Oh my God, Peter, what have I done? Suddenly, the voice in his head rang again. Don't worry about him. How can a high school student understand your pursuit of science? With this money, we can realize our dreams. Wake up, Otto Octavian. You are a scientist, not a criminal. The reason why Peter did not transform into a Punisher and solve this matter with violence. It is because the anger in his body can no longer be suppressed. This is the disadvantage of villain superheroes. After killing a large number of people, he has lost his reverence for life. To resolve the anger, he can only kill people. Peter had a hunch that as long as he used violent means, he would beat Otto to death. Otto frowned. and the voice in his head kept saying one sentence after another. He couldn't control the mechanical arms on his body. They were too powerful. Peter, get out of here. He's crazy. Which normal person would rob a bank? Gwen was so anxious. Peter was just an ordinary person. Once this monster with 6 hands came over, it was difficult for Gwen to fight him and protect Peter at the same time. Peter, I can succeed. The last nuclear integrate experiment was successful. With a little modification, I can change the world. There will be no war in the whole United States and the whole world. There is enough energy. Otto opened his arms, and his 4 mechanical arms also opened. At this moment, he looked like a god who created the world. But what he did was no different from the devil. Advertisement, Otto. We can take it slowly. Tesla also experienced countless failures before inventing the light bulb. What's the difference between what you are doing now and robbery? Think about Rose. Think about your wife. She won't want to see you do this. Peter's voice was loud, and Otto showed a look of astonishment after hearing this. Rose is not dead? She is definitely not dead. One of my friends sent her to a safe place. Why don't you let her come to see me? Otto's voice was low, but judging from the almost crazy waving of the mechanical tentacles, at this moment, he was still controlling this body. With a bang, Otto jumped directly from the 2nd floor and jumped directly in front of Peter. Rose is still alive. Peter, Rose is still alive? Why doesn't she come to see me? Otto's voice was very calm, but Gwen remained vigilant. This kind of peace is like a huge reef hidden under the sea, which can bring danger to passing ships at any time. Peter's voice was calm from beginning to end. Otto, look at you now. Are you a respected scientist or a monster controlled by a machine? Do you think Rose wants to see you like this? The mechanical tentacles were still whispering beside Otto. Stop talking. Otto's tone was low, but the tentacles were still brainwashing him. I said, stop talking. Otto clenched his teeth, and at this moment he regained control of his body. Help me, Peter. I can't control it for too long. Don't worry, Otto. The next second, Peter frowned and looked to the side. Spider telepathy. A bullet was fired from the gun in the hand of a policeman not far away, and the target he wanted to kill was Otto. Bang. The reaction of the artificial intelligence tentacles is undoubtedly faster. It blocked the bullet instantly and stretched out its arms to press the shooting policeman to death on the ground and turned him into a pool of meat paste. It's not unfair. Peter hates this kind of brainless guy the most. He has already stabilized Otto's emotions. This is clearly provoking him. Quick, get out of here. Peter took Gwen's hand and ran. He didn't think this new superhero could deal with Dr. Octopus. No, Peter, I have to stop him. Get out of here, and protect yourself. Gwen fired a cobweb at Rage's Dr. Octopus. It's impossible not to be violent. Chapter 41. Peter had already stabilized him. Do the police officers of the London Police Department only know how to eat donuts in the office? Gwen was very angry at the moment, because someone fired a gun without authorization. This made Otto completely lose his mind and was controlled by the tentacles. At the same time, it also caused great damage to the city. Spider-Woman. The mechanical tentacles swung violently, breaking the cobweb that connected Gwen to the balcony of the building. Gwen was instantly caught by the tentacles. It's over. She pressed the switch of the web shooters with her middle finger and ring finger frantically, and a large amount of cobwebs sprayed towards Dr. Octopus, instantly wrapped him into a cocoon. Gwen also broke free from the control of the mechanical tentacles. The next second, the spider web was torn from the inside. Bang! A sonic boom sounded in the air. The Punisher, with his hair combed back and wearing a black coat, joined the battlefield. The back hair is a one-click dressing function, and you can instantly choose your own hairstyle, provided that you have enough hair. Miss Spider, it seems that you still haven't learned how to fight. Peter spoke indifferently, his eyes slightly red. The more people you kill, the more violent you become. You must release it in time, and the only way to release it is to kill people. I've been ridiculed again. Gwen held her breath and didn't speak. Your movements are very agile, but your way of fighting is too clumsy. You can't use everything around you to fight. You hesitate when fighting, and you will only fail in the end. Have you said enough? Dr. Octopus said angrily. If you two get rid of me, no one will stop me from realizing my scientific ideals. Peter wore a black mask and floated in front of Dr. Octopus. Wake up, Otto. I don't want to expose your purpose. Benefiting all mankind is just a necessary thing for you to pursue your goal. Your real purpose is to gain honor. It would be best if Otto Octavian's name appears in the school physics textbook. Dr. Octopus seemed to be poked at his true thoughts, and he became even crazier. The mechanical arm easily dismantled the fire hydrant fixed on the side of the road and smashed it towards Peter. You, go to hell. Peter easily dodged the attack, using Einstein's theory of relativity to explain, the faster the speed, the slower the time. When Peter moved, the whole world almost stopped. Normally, even if he was wearing a mask and disguised his identity, Peter would not embarrass Otto in public. But at this moment, hostility filled his whole body. Impatience, anger, and all negative emotions such as the desire to destroy swelled in his mind. Peter stopped talking nonsense, and at the moment the mechanical arm reached out to him, Peter grabbed it with both hands and swung it violently, just like the scene in the movie where the Hulk threw Loki. Bang, bang, bang. Even the mechanical arm can't stand such a beating. At this moment, it doesn't seem like a fight between two people, but rather like one person's violence. With the blessing of the power of the bull spell, Peter broke the tentacles behind Otto in half. Advertisement, I have to say, this tentacle is really strong. For tentacles were torn off, almost exhausting all of Peter's strength. It's over. A policeman walked forward excitedly. He took out a pistol and pointed it at the unconscious Otto's head. Such a terrorist should be shot on the spot. Peter grabbed the pistol fiercely and instantly crushed it into scrap metal. Since when, you bunch of New York trash have the power to make decisions? Gwen felt strange that he didn't kill Dr. Octopus. Remember last time, he was going to step on Green Goblin to death with 1 foot. Peter glanced at Gwen. I know what you are thinking, but this is the rule of this world. Strength and file size determine the level of power. The people I want to kill, even the United States can't save them. Similarly, the people I want to save, they can't move. After that, Peter carried the unconscious Otto to London, England. As before, the weather here is still overcast. Bang, bang, bang. Rose was awakened by the knock on the door. Ever since that dangerous incident happened last time, she never dared to leave the hotel alone again. Who? Rose was a little nervous. It was hard not to be nervous in a foreign country. It's me. Peter's voice sounded. Rose's nervousness was relieved immediately. It was the Punisher. As soon as the door opened, Rose almost screamed. Oh my God. Otto, what happened to him? At the moment, Otto fell into a coma, and the 4 mechanical arms behind him were all broken. I believe what happened will be reported on the news tonight. I don't have the patience to repeat what happened just now, but compared to his condition, it seems that controlling him is the most important thing to do at the moment. After all, Mr. Otto's current boss is the artificial intelligence behind him. Looking at the Punisher with red eyes, Rose didn't dare to ask more. The two tied Otto to the bed. Excuse me, what should we do now? Rose looked worried, and her voice was also pleading. It's what you should do. Otto is your husband. I saved him just to repay Peter for a favor. If possible, I can pull out the metal chain connected to his back. Don't. Rose was completely panicked. If the machine is connected to Otto's nerves, he will be stupid if he is forcibly removed. Unless there is a suppression chip, let Otto operate it himself. Unfortunately, no one can make this thing. Peter turned and left. I understand that you love your husband, but Otto is not the only genius in the world. Chapter 42. After Peter returned to Queens, London, he lay in his bedroom, trying to cover up his anger with sleep. When he fell asleep, he didn't want to kill anyone. He had to go to a party at night. He tried to find a criminal after the party to get rid of the anger in his body. However, just as Peter was about to fall asleep, a mechanical electronic sound rang in his ears. Due to your good performance in the previous task, you have a chance to choose. Please choose one of the following 4 options as your reward. Tiger Talisman. Balance the heart. After choosing it, you will not be entangled by anger. Even if you achieve the achievement of killing people, your mentality will not be affected by anger. Chicken Talisman. Flight. Ability to suspend in the air. Pig Talisman. You will get the electric eye ability, and your eyes will shoot out high-voltage hot melt electric current. The only drawback is that you may not be able to wear glasses after you have it. 10,000 points. Peter had some difficulty in choosing for a while. All 3 talismans are very useful to him. From the current situation, he does not have any of the 3 abilities. Although he could fly before, that was the effect of the flight potion. Points are required to redeem in the mall, and every time you redeem this potion, the points required increase. Therefore, The chicken talisman is very tempting. Similarly, the pig talisman is also a must. Peter has no shortcomings in speed now. It may be a little worse than Superman, but it should not be a big problem to face the Flash. Even if it can't be compared, it won't be too far behind. In terms of strength, there is a bull talisman to make up for the shortcomings. The only thing is that there is no way to attack from a distance. Although it is a yin shuangying template, you can't use a gun when you really fight, right? Mainly facing some people with strong combat power, the gun is completely useless. After thinking about it, Peter decided to give up the tiger talisman, although it can solve his anger problem at the moment. But the cost-effectiveness is not high. Killing someone to vent anger can also solve it. As for flight and electric eyes, they really give Peter a headache. Can't the useful talismans appear separately? Peter muttered inwardly. For example, let the tiger spell, sheep spell, and dog spell appear together. For this kind of choice, I don't have to hesitate at all. After thinking it over again and again, Peter chose the pig spell. In addition to its functionality, it is really handsome to have electric eyes. At the moment Peter chose it, because it was a permanent spell, the physical spell did not appear, but turned into white light and poured into his body. Long-term task, collection of zodiac signs. I have everything I need, 3/12. The task progress has reached a quarter. Advertisement, you get a chance to choose. Please choose from the following options. Choice 1, Jack Chin's chewing gum, effect description. I will definitely return it to you. A one-time consumable, chewing gum during combat, there is a certain chance to get an item from the enemy. Choice 2, stay here, Xiao Yu. Say this sentence, you can apply stealth status to any creature, 100% movement speed bonus, cannot be used on yourself, one-time consumption. There are so many strange things. Peter casually put a piece of gum into his pocket. At this moment, the sleepiness has almost dissipated. Then he heard the system's voice again. Detect your current state. The resentment value is 93%. People live in this life, and they must go through the 8 sufferings: birth, aging, sickness and death, love and separation, failure to obtain. The 5 elements are burning. Even you will have bad times. Please eliminate the resentment in your body as soon as possible. Peter ignored it, covered himself with a quilt, and fell asleep. This sleep lasted until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He was still woken up by Gwen, who broke in. Peter, wake up. Gwen, with blonde hair, sat beside his bed and gently shook his shoulders. Peter yawned. Do you have to come when I'm sleeping? Especially when I'm sleeping soundly. Gwen wanted to tease, but suddenly noticed the other's red eyes. He was startled immediately. Oh my God. Why are your eyes so red? Because I'm really angry, but not at you. Red eyes are a concrete manifestation of excessive hostility. Is it because of Dr. Octopus? Gwen asked worriedly. Peter, you are the bravest person I have ever seen. In the morning, facing that dangerous situation, you dared to stand in front of Dr. Octopus to stop him. You are so brave. Peter smiled slightly. How do you know this matter so clearly? Gwen was stunned, and then quickly reacted. The news, definitely said in the news. Okay, Peter, I think you should not go to the party tonight. How about I stay with you? Peter shook his head. How can this be done? This is a party held by Teacher Carter before retirement. You have to go to see him no matter what, otherwise you may not have the chance to meet him again in the future. Okay, Peter, then we should leave now. Not long after, Peter and Gwen, dressed in casual suits, got on the car to Teacher Carter's house. But Peter always felt that he seemed to have forgotten something. Chapter 43. At night in New York, Brooklyn, adjacent to Queens, is the commercial center. The housing prices here are quite expensive, but they are also safe enough. Like Times Square, cameras are everywhere in the streets. In a city full of lights and wine, joy is the foundation and emptiness is the background. Peter bought a bottle of dry red wine from the store. This is the basic etiquette for visiting. What's more, Teacher Carter takes good care of Peter. If it weren't for her, the scholarships in the past 2 years would not be so easy to get. What should I buy? Gwen was a little worried. She was the worst at choosing gifts. She couldn't afford the expensive ones, and the ones she could afford were a little cheap. Peter shook the wine in his hand. Just say this is a gift we prepared together. I know you treat me well. When the two arrived, many people had already come to Teacher Carter's house. Not only the students she taught, but also colleagues in the school and some friends in life. This old teacher has a good relationship with people. As soon as he entered the door, Peter felt that many eyes fell on him. Wow, Peter. You look so handsome in a suit. I'm going to post this on Twitter. Let's take a photo together. Immediately, female classmates surrounded him. Peter, who had gotten rid of his frail body, was healthy, tall, and a top student. More importantly, he received $1 million from Stark Industries. Naturally, many girls were secretly attracted to him, expecting to be pushed down on the bed by him, and then they could spend his money openly. Sorry, everyone, I don't want to take pictures today. Peter ignored them, but was attracted by a middle-aged man who was talking to Teacher Carter not far away. A man who was missing his right arm. There were many people around them. Gwen took Peter's arm, as if to declare her sovereignty. In the past, she often used her own pocket money to help Peter choose some clothes, just to make him more popular. Now she hopes he won't be so popular. Many girls in the school were staring at him. Peter smiled slightly. Miss Gwen, swearing sovereignty is not just about holding arms. You have to do this. As he said this, he took Gwen's hand, clasping their fingers tightly together. After more than 10 years of contact, the two knew each other well, but the sudden hand-holding made Gwen feel like an electric shock in her brain. Oh, Peter. Peter approached Gwen and whispered in her ear. Maybe, I still lack a formal confession. Peter didn't say this on a whim. He and Gwen are familiar with each other, neighbors for many years, and have a good relationship, and now they are old enough to fall in love. Advertisement, there is no need to hesitate. It's time to sublimate their friendship. Gwen's face turned red all of a sudden. It's not that she hadn't thought about this scene, but it was too sudden, making her a little overwhelmed for a while. Peter, words can't express 1/10,000th of the feelings in my heart, but physical contact can. The two held their hands tightly together. Suddenly, Teacher Carter, who was not far away, called Peter. I'll be right there. Gwen sat on the sofa and took a big sip of her cocktail. She was excited, happy, and a little complicated. After all, she had a secret to hide. She didn't know how to tell Peter. On the other side, Carter hurriedly introduced the middle-aged man next to her. Peter, this is Dr. Connors, a famous biological scientist who has published many important papers internationally. Connors, this is the Peter Parker I told you about, with excellent science grades. The two held hands together. Hello, Dr. Connors. I have read your paper, and it has benefited me a lot. Connors smiled slightly. Mr. Parker, it is not a good habit to compliment others. It will unconsciously put yourself in an unequal position. Peter was stunned. I was just being polite. Do you usually chat with others like this? Only those with real talent and knowledge can be respected. Connors paused and said, in my impression, high school students only know how to fall in love and play video games. Carter has high praise for you. So, let me ask you a question. Carter, a teacher on the side, looked at Connors with a slightly reproachful look. I kindly introduced my students to you, but you embarrassed him. I will never introduce people to you again next time. Please ask. Peter's eyes were red, and he was obviously impatient. He was no stranger to Dr. Connors, one of Spider-Man's classic villains. Because he wanted to recover, he wanted to be healthy, and he wanted his lost arm to be restored. He injected himself with lizard serum. In the end, he became a lizard man who was neither human nor ghost. But Peter didn't know if this would happen in the world where Gwen became Spider-Man. After all, this world is quite integrate. Marvel, DC, Sony, and the Black Robe Picket. No one can guarantee that the plot will develop as it was. Chapter 44. Connors smiled. Before he became a professor at the university, he was a military doctor. He had seen too many misfortunes in the war. Many people lost their lives in the war, and even those who survived suffered from post-war stress disorder. But compared to them, those who were disabled in the war were truly miserable. Kurt Connors was one of them. The war made him lose his entire right arm. If he hadn't had some rich knowledge to support him as a university teacher, he didn't know what he could do. Later, by chance, he met Norman Osborn. The other party supported his gene recombination research. At present, this research has reached the final stage. This level 1 section ends, which is human experiments. The regeneration of the broken tail of the lizard gave Connors inspiration. As long as this experimental research is successful, there will be no more disabilities in the world in the future. There will even be no more diseases. Major diseases in life are usually caused by the breakdown of a certain tissue in the body. Because of the high cost and mismatched organs, patients can only lie in bed and wait to die. As long as the gene recombination experiment is successful, humans who have integrated lizard genes may grow new organs. Even if this cannot be achieved, it should not be difficult for physically disabled people to grow new limbs. Unfortunately, Norman Osborn turned out to be a green goblin that endangers the world. With his imprisonment, the genetic recombination project was also shelved. Without financial support, Connor's experiment could not continue. Fortunately, a few days ago, Norman Osborn's son, Harry Osborn, contacted him and promised to restart the experiment after he returned home. This made Connors ecstatic, which is why he was in the mood to attend the retirement party of his college classmate Carter tonight. Connors looked at Peter and said with a smile, "You just said that you have read the paper I wrote, so you should know my ideas. I have a colleague who suffers from Parkinson's disease, macular degeneration, blurred vision, and increasingly weak vision. From a biological perspective, how should he treat himself?" Seeing that Peter did not answer, a classmate named Kaysen quickly said, "Dr. Connors, use stem cells." Kaysen has always looked down on Peter and targeted him everywhere. He often talked about Peter with his small group. He said that he was a gigolo who only knew how to hide behind Gwen. In fact, the real reason for his anger was that the gigolo was not him. So he targeted Peter everywhere, but unfortunately, he could not compare with Peter in terms of academic performance or other aspects. This time, he actively showed himself in front of Connors just to embarrass Peter. Connors nodded. "I have an idea, but I need a more thorough solution. Cross-species genetics." Advertisement. Peter gave the correct answer. Once the brain cells that produce dopamine disappear, people will suffer from Parkinson's disease. But zebrafish have the ability to regenerate cells. If you have the ability to give its genes to your colleague, maybe he can heal himself. Kaysen held back his sarcasm and said, "Yeah, just put a gill on the patient's neck." "Shut up." Connor's son interrupted Kaysen. "Arrogance and sarcasm can't give you more new knowledge." Connor's son looked at Peter. His eyes were completely different from before, with a little more appreciation. "Mr. Parker, we can add a contact number, and if we have time, we can discuss this issue in detail in another place." "My pleasure, Professor." Kaysen felt like a joker, and his eyes looked at Peter with more disgust. "Hey, Peter, do you dare to compete with me in drinking?" He looked at Peter provocatively, but the other party ignored him directly and left two words he didn't understand. SB. Although Kaysen didn't understand what this meant, he knew it was not a good thing to say. Ignoring the anger, "Peter, you only know how to hide behind a woman?" Gwen rushed over when she heard the voice and grabbed Peter's hand. "Hide behind a woman? Peter is the bravest person I have ever seen. Go and watch the news." When Dr. Octopus was making trouble in the street today, who stood in front of him to stop him? "And you, Kaysen, are just a poor student with only a C in comprehensive grades every year. Besides, Peter is my boyfriend. If you have the ability, you can also find a woman to protect you." After saying that, Gwen pulled Peter away from the party. It was not until they returned to Queens that Gwen's face turned red. Standing at the door of Gwen's house, the two stood facing each other, holding hands together. Gwen looked into Peter's eyes. Although her face was red, her ears were also red. But there was an inexplicable provocation in her eyes. Peter smiled and said, "So, my girlfriend, should we have a hug or a kiss before going home?" "Hey, Peter, what's the weather like to make you so greasy?" Although she said that, Gwen still rushed directly into Peter's arms. At this moment, George opened the door. Looking at the couple who just fell in love with a complicated expression. "I had a good impression of Peter before, but when I saw him holding his daughter, why do I have the urge to kick him for no reason?" Chapter 45. Goodbye, Peter. Good night, Peter. Well, go back and have a good sleep. Peter stood at the door of Stacy's house. Gwen looked back every few steps, and her eyes and movements showed deep reluctance. George coughed lightly and couldn't help muttering in his heart, "It's not like we won't see each other tomorrow. Is it really that hard to let go?" As expected, daughters are like spilled water. Now that nothing has happened, she doesn't want to go home. Although he temporarily dislikes Peter, compared to others, this seems to be the best choice. It's better than Gwen choosing another boyfriend. Peter smiled and watched the door of Gwen's house close. The moment the door was completely closed, the expression on his face suddenly changed. It was as gloomy as a seaside pier, and the tide that could never be wiped clean on the rotten wooden boards. He took out his mobile phone and tapped the screen with his fingertips. Half of the surveillance cameras in Queens were out of service. For a genius science and engineering student, this is not difficult. Then he turned and walked into the shadows not far away. A figure appeared in the dark alley. "You have the patience to follow me from the next district to here." As Peter finished speaking, Kaysen, who was wearing a baseball uniform and had a short American haircut, appeared. "You made me look bad at the party tonight. So, I have to punch you." He stared at Peter. His voice was vicious, and his eyes were the same. I really don't understand why the daughter of the police chief fell in love with you. Because you have good grades? What's the use? Keep your distance from Gwen in the future, or I will see you. In the dark box, 2 yellow lights flashed. With a plop, the muffled sound of the body falling to the ground ended briefly. Peter took out a cigarette from his pocket, took a puff, and felt comfortable physically and mentally. The problem of hostility was solved. He was a spark in the dark, gradually approaching the fallen body. If nothing unexpected happens, Kaysen will still be 18 years old 18 years later. Peter looked at Kaysen, whose head was like a broken basketball. Guess what he wanted to say just now? Keep your distance from Gwen in the future, or I will beat you up every time I see you. It's a pity that he didn't have the chance. Peter finished smoking a cigarette and instantly changed into the Punisher's outfit. Then he carried Kaysen's body and flew over the Pacific Ocean. The sea under the starry sky at night was like a ferocious monster with a big mouth that wanted to swallow everything. Peter threw the body down without any psychological burden. Kaysen, I'm so good to you. Many people want to die in the Pacific Ocean, but don't have the chance. Leaving a word, Peter returned to New York. Killing this guy, Peter had no psychological burden at all. This guy bullied many people in the class. Advertisement killing him is also a punishment for evil. School bullies are also a crime. If you don't like me, you can stay away from me instead of coming to touch me. Back home, Peter took a shower and the fatigue on his body was swept away. It's hard to describe the feeling of being full of hostility. It's a bit like an angry young man who can't stand anything and has the urge to destroy everything around him. Now Peter is out of this state. He feels so comfortable. In a city like New York where wealth and crime coexist, there are endless criminals to catch, so he decided to give himself a holiday. Have a good night's rest. The next morning, Saturday, Peter was awakened by the noisy sound downstairs while sleeping. Although he didn't wake up naturally, he felt energetic. He washed his face and went downstairs. Peter, I'm sorry for waking you up, Aunt May said apologetically. Don't say that. Where are you going? Peter's face was full of question marks. Early in the morning, I saw Uncle Ben and Aunt May changing clothes, as if they were going out. Uncle Ben nodded and smiled. Your Aunt May's sister is coming here as a guest. She will arrive in the afternoon. They haven't seen each other for a long time, so it's inevitable that they are a little excited. Peter was also very happy to hear this news. In my memory, Aunt May's sister, Aunt Lisa, comes to New York once a year, stays for a week each time, and takes good care of Peter. His first mobile phone was bought by Aunt Lisa. Great. I'll arrange dinner tonight. I know a very good restaurant. Take Aunt Lisa out for dinner. Uncle Ben smiled. We all understand your intentions, but that's the money you need for school. You'll need money to get married in the future. Peter, your Aunt May and I can hardly help you, so you have to save the scholarship Mr. Stark gave you. Oh, Uncle Ben, you can't eat much in one meal. How about this? We'll eat at home. When you go to pick up Aunt Lisa in the afternoon, I'll go buy groceries. That's it. Uncle Ben smiled and shook his head. Suddenly he seemed to think of something. Speaking of which, Mr. Tony Stark has been missing for a long time. He's a good man. What a pity. Peter was stunned. Oh no. How could he have forgotten this matter completely? After tying up Otto yesterday, he was going to find Tony to develop a suppression chip. As a result, because of his anger, he actually forgot such an important thing. Remember that in Iron Man, Tony solved this matter by himself. So, it shouldn't matter if I go a little later. Peter didn't dare to delay any longer and rushed out of the house. Peter, you haven't had breakfast yet. I'm not hungry. Chapter 46. Middle East. In a cave occupied by a terrorist organization, Tony took a deep breath. He was obviously a little nervous at the moment. The terrorists asked him to make weapons and installed surveillance cameras in the cave. Tony was very obedient and did make weapons, but not for them, but for himself. The iron guy in front of him, which was nearly 2 meters long, was the weapon he made. No time, Mr. Stark. We are watching closely. Ethan, who was wearing glasses, had fine sweat on his head, not only because of the hot and stuffy environment in the cave, but also because of the nervous mood. You know, not far away. Outside the door are all murderers who kill without blinking. Ethan saw them slaughter a village with his own eyes. No matter the men, they could not escape death, and the women's fate was even more terrible. The iron battle suit was too heavy, and he hurriedly helped Tony put it on. Hey, don't be nervous, buddy. At this dangerous moment, Tony smiled. There's still time. They haven't found us yet. Listen to me, Ethan. We will all leave this damn place alive. I will help you find your family and let you be my neighbor. But you have to change your bad habit of snoring when you sleep. Mr. Stark, I snore because I'm too tired. In the face of the crisis of death, the two chatted about trivial matters in a joking tone. But they all knew that what greeted them might not be the light leading to freedom. It is more likely to be the road to death. At this moment, outside the Iron Gate, the bald, oppressive leader I didn't find the name of this person in the original book, so I just gave him a random name. Forgive me. He walked to the computer and saw two people in the cave. The surveillance screen shocked him, and his brows frowned immediately. He hurriedly asked the younger brother beside him, "Where is Tony Stark?" The younger brother looked nervous. "He was here just now. Hurry up and send someone to check." Min frowned. He always valued this billionaire, the playboy. Two terrorists armed with real guns and live ammunition immediately rushed to the front door and asked them to open the door in a language that Tony could not understand. Ethan tried to delay desperately, but it was useless to delay at this moment. Fortunately, they installed their homemade induction bomb on the door. Once someone broke in, it was guaranteed that they would enter heaven after opening the door. It takes a process to start the armor. The progress bar on the computer was running wildly, but it still took a process. Ethan said, "Mr. Stark, you are the smartest person I have ever seen. I have never seen anyone who can make a reactor with all the rags and palladium in such a dilapidated cave." Just then, there was a bang. An explosion occurred at the door. The two guys who wanted to force their way in went to heaven on the spot. "I'll go and delay time." After saying that, Ethan picked up the gun on the ground and rushed out directly, regardless of Tony's obstruction. As a scientist, he is not very good at this. He shot everywhere and drove the enemy away, until he saw all the terrorists pointing guns at him. Advertisement, it's over. This is Dr. Ethan's last thought. At that moment, he thought a lot. He wanted to have a cup of coffee, sleep on a soft bed, change into a new set of clothes, want Tony to leave here, think about his children, and think about his wife. However, it's all over. Bang! Ethan fell to the ground, but he was not shot, but blown away by a gust of air. "I'm okay." "You are definitely okay, Dr. Ethan." A cold voice sounded in his ears, and in just a moment, he was taken out of the cave and stood on the yellow sand. Ethan was almost stupid. Who was the man in front of him? He was wearing a white shirt, combed his hair back, wearing a mask, and had a very good figure. "No need to say thank you. As for who I am, you can call me Punisher." Ethan took a deep breath. "I still have to thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you." "Yes," Ethan shouted. "Mr. Stark, Mr. Tony Stark is still in there. Go save him. Don't worry, he won't die so easily. That suit of armor can protect his life." Peter stood on the sand dune, looking down at the terrorist base not far away. He didn't want to interfere too much with Tony's development and would rather give up the scattered points on the ground and let Tony kill happily. The reason why he rescued Ethan was purely Peter's personal affection for him. When in a desperate situation, who doesn't want someone to help him? Ethan was shocked by Peter's words on the side. How do you know that Stark has built a battle armor?" Peter didn't look at him and responded lightly, "I know everything." Tony's eyes were red at this moment. Bullets poured out, and the bullets in the terrorist's gun were constantly hitting him. But the heavy armor was enough to ensure his safety. Ethan, where are you?" After the bullets were used up, flames were sprayed from the two forearms of Mark I. All the tone was burned out. The leader of the terrorists knew that he could not escape. He hurriedly took out a tube of blue potion from his arms. "This is the number 5 compound obtained from Water Company. P.S. I was abandoned by the promise of Wu Beiwa to add more chapters, and someone still voted for me. I decided to add more chapters the day after tomorrow, as much as I can, and I have to go out tomorrow, but I will not stop." Chapter 47. Min looked at the steel monster not far away and spat on the ground. As expected of Tony Stark. Really clever. The next second, he lifted his clothes and thrust the needle into his body. The chemical reaction brought by the drug made every neuron in his body sense the pain information. Skin, nerves, blood vessels, muscles, internal organs, bones. Huge amounts of pain almost made him faint. Compound number 5 first appeared in Germany before World War II. Some people wanted to form a Superman team for Seidler. But the tide of the times rolled forward. The tyrant did not reverse the decline, and the Normandy landing shattered his last fantasy. The formula of compound number 5 fell into the hands of Americans. Water Company also appeared. It was not because of Water Company that compound number 5 appeared, But because of compound number 5, water company came into being. Because people's physical fitness is different, their reactions to drugs are also different. Some people inject compound number 5 and inject glucose. Some people will be in agony. Min is the latter. After huge amounts of pain, Min felt like she was reborn. Her body was like a spring that was compressed to the extreme, and she couldn't wait to release her strength. She took off her shirt, and her skin shone with a metallic luster. It was like a layer of iron paint. In this space, everyone's hands were stained with blood, and Min could become their leader. Not only does it require brains, but also the courage to not fear death. Stark, have you ever seen this? He bought compound number 5 from Vought Company at a high price. Find an insider. Min rushed forward. He punched Tony, Mark 1's armor. Tony, who had a heavy metal defense, actually felt a little pain. Wang Defa. Can't we win with technology? This is cheating. He complained, but he didn't dare to hesitate. The metal fists slammed with Mig. No one got the upper hand. This scene was seen by Peter on the distant sand dunes. The world of Integrate is really outrageous. Fortunately, I arrived in time. Otherwise, Tony might not be able to leave here alive. Peter watched them fighting for 2 minutes, but they couldn't do anything to each other. Peter was a little impatient. He had other things to deal with. Gwen had to rehearse the band's program at school these 2 days. But he had an appointment with him for lunch at noon, and he had to go to the supermarket to buy groceries in the afternoon. At the same time, he hadn't finished his schoolwork yet. If nothing unexpected happened, he had to earn points on the streets of New York in the evening. Advertisement. I have a lot of things to do, Peter murmured. Then he couldn't watch it anymore, and appeared in front of Min in an instant. This scared the terrorist leader who killed people without blinking an eye. Before he could react, 2 rays of light shot out from Peter's eyes, shooting Min through the heart. At the same time, Tony's Mark I also completely disintegrated, and there was no extra energy to maintain the armor. He sat on the ground and gasped heavily. His body was covered with bruises. It was obvious that the crudely made first-generation armor did not protect its maker. I thought I was dead. Without me, you are indeed dead. Even though Tony was exhausted, he did not want to lose to others in a verbal battle. Did you bring Coke? I feel like I haven't eaten anything sweet for a year. Suddenly he seemed to think of something. Punisher. Ethan. Help save him. He was out of breath. Ethan. A little old man with glasses. If his nose was a little sharper, he would be like Gargamel in the Smurfs. Tony, who was already exhausted, tried to find the benefactor who saved his life, but he could not muster any strength. Don't worry, he has been rescued. That's good. Tony let out a long sigh. When we get back to New York, I'll treat you to a drink. Do you like Turkish kebabs? After he said this, he was completely exhausted and fell asleep. As a playboy who has no worries about food and clothing, although he deliberately keeps exercising, alcohol and beauty have caused considerable damage to his body. During this period, he has been staying with terrorists, which makes him physically and mentally exhausted. The fear of death constantly stimulates his nerves and drains his last potential. Now that the threat is lifted, Tony's tense nerves become relaxed, and fatigue follows. Peter, you won't let me carry you back to New York? You have completed the task and saved the new Iron Man. Get 20,000 points. Your total points are 84,600. Because you have completed the task excellently, the points reward is doubled. Your total points are 104,600. Without small steps, there is no way to 1,000 miles. Without small streams, there is no river or sea. And one day, you will get everything you want. Peter looked at Tony Stark, who was sleeping. Forget it. I got 40,000 points and $1 million from you, so I'll carry you for a while. I'll ask Miss Pepper to reimburse the travel expenses later. Chapter 48. Stark Industries. Pepper took a sip of coffee and tried to cheer herself up. She was exhausted recently. She didn't care about the company's stock or internal personnel changes, but she had a special feeling for Tony. She was more anxious than anyone else when Tony disappeared. Pepper took a sip of coffee and leaned back in her office chair, closed her eyes and rested. She was too tired. Sometimes mental fatigue made people look worse than physical fatigue. When she opened her eyes again, she was shocked. Oh my God. Pepper was startled and stood up from her chair. Who are you? Pepper had never seen Peter as the Punisher. Looking at the masked man in front of her, she felt a little flustered. It doesn't matter who I am, Peter said. What matters is that I brought back your lover. Tony? Pepper was stunned, then denied. He is not my lover. He is my boss. Where is he? Sleeping in the room inside. Peter nodded slightly and gestured. Pepper rushed into the inner room and saw Tony, who was covered in wounds and sleeping on the bed. Next to him was Ethan, who was wearing glasses and had a scholarly temperament. Peter's voice sounded from behind him. His name is Ethan, and he is Tony's savior. He will explain to you what happened in detail. I rescued Tony from the terrorist lair. He owes me a favor. I will come to him at this time tomorrow. After saying this, Peter was ready to leave. Ethan quickly stood up. The scientist also experienced inhumane mental torture at the hands of terrorists. At this moment, after escaping from the dead and relaxing his mind, he became extremely tired, and like Tony, he could fall asleep as soon as he lay down. But he still pulled himself together and walked to Peter. He held Peter's hands with both hands. Thank you, sir. Thank you. If it weren't for you, we would have definitely died. Thank you. His expression was sincere, and the joy of surviving the disaster made the scholar, who was almost half a century old, shed tears. Have a good rest, Ethan. It's not me who saved you, but you. If you go along with those terrorists, I don't mind leaving one more body in the desert. Ethan was stunned and could only nod and thank him repeatedly. Peter didn't say anything more. He turned and left Stark Industries. 11 o'clock in the afternoon. Outside Midtown Technical High School. Because it is close to the school, many of the shops around are restaurants. Advertisement last night. After Gwen returned home, she had planned to stick with Peter all weekend. After breaking the boundary of friendship, she just wanted to be with Peter. For this reason, she also looked up 100 little things to do with her boyfriend on the internet. I wanted to change into a nice dress and then go to Peter early in the morning, go out to eat, watch movies, play games, and go shopping together. But the school performance rehearsal was scheduled in advance. The band is not hers alone, and she has to consider other members. She can only meet Peter during the lunch break. Peter. Gwen saw Peter from a distance. She waved to him. Peter walked up and naturally held Gwen's hand. This made Gwen feel itchy. The boy's hand was so hard and warm. Miss Gwen, how about having steak at noon? I'll treat you. Then Mr. Parker will pay for it. It felt weird, but I liked it very much. In the past 10 years, the two have always been more than friends, but less than lovers. Now that they are together, it suddenly feels a bit weird. The two came to a steak restaurant, which is a restaurant under Stark Industries. Stark Industries mainly involves technology and military research. As for why there is a restaurant, it is probably bought by the genius, the playboy after getting drunk. After all, he is not short of money at all. Entering the restaurant, the decoration inside is very luxurious. Even Gwen sighed a little. As the daughter of the police chief, she has not been to such high-end places too often. After all, George is fair and not corrupt. With his salary, he can be regarded as a middle-class family, but it is only a middle-class family. Peter, it's too expensive, let's go. Peter shrugged. It's not always eating. The first date should always be taken seriously. Peter ordered a few signature dishes. Suddenly, a woman in a professional suit came over. Excuse me, are you Peter Parker, Mr. Parker? Peter was slightly stunned, and he didn't remember seeing this woman. It's me. What can I do for you? We just received news that any consumption you have under Stark Company will be permanently free of charge. Wish you a happy meal. Peter was slightly stunned, and soon figured out what was going on. Previously, he claimed that Peter was his friend as the Punisher. Stark couldn't find the Punisher, so he gave all his rewards to Peter. Gwen's face was full of surprise. Peter, when did you become so familiar with Mr. Stark? Chapter 49. Peter smiled slightly. Maybe Mr. Stark thinks I'm a genius. He told me before that he would work in his company after graduating from college. That's amazing. Gwen gave Peter a thumbs up. Come closer. Peter suddenly spoke. What? Come sit next to me. Peter patted the sofa under his butt. Gwen's face suddenly turned red. Although she felt a little shy, she couldn't help getting close to Peter. Gwen kissed Peter on the face like a chicken pecking at rice. You haven't confessed yet. Then let's do it now. Peter took Gwen's hand. The midday sun shone through the window on their faces. No glare and exposure. Only warmth and brightness. Ahem, Miss Gwen Stacy, are you willing to be Peter Parker's girlfriend? What's going on? It's not a marriage. I do. Peter took Gwen in his arms and kissed the blonde girl deeply. 40 minutes later, the two came out of the restaurant hand in hand. Not a penny was paid. Peter didn't feel embarrassed about this. He saved Tony's life, so it's not too much to give him 2 meals for free. After the kiss just now, His relationship with Gwen has taken a step further. The friendship officially ended, and a new chapter began. I'll take you back to school. No, Peter. Aren't your distant relatives coming? You have to get ready. I can go back alone. See you later. In the past, Gwen's voice was very crisp, but after the kiss just now, this somewhat manly blonde lady actually turned on the clip sound. But don't say it, it's pretty nice. After lunch, Peter went home to finish his school homework and helped Gwen write one. Then he slept for another 2 hours and went to buy groceries after waking up. In the past, Peter always went to the discount area to buy groceries, but now he goes directly to the boutique area. I have to say that the ingredients in the boutique area are fresh. On the way home, Peter bought another bouquet of flowers. After returning home happily, he received a call from George. Peter was a little confused. George had never called him in his memory. Hello, Uncle George, are you looking for Gwen? She should be rehearsing the band program at school, not with me. There was a barely perceptible sigh on the other end of the phone. Sorry, Peter, I have bad news to tell you. Your aunt died. Bang. The flowers fell to the ground, and the yellow petals were scattered all over the ground. Advertisement, what's going on? You'd better come to the hospital quickly. 20 minutes later, in a public hospital in Queens, Peter saw Uncle Ben sitting on a chair outside the ward with his head down. He looked quite tired. Uncle Ben. Hearing Peter's voice, Uncle Ben raised his head, his eyes slightly red, and he had obviously shed a lot of tears. Lisa, she passed away. Peter gave the old man in front of him a hug and waited until the other's emotions calmed down. He continued to ask, What happened, Aunt Lisa? She was hit by a train. Train? Peter frowned, feeling incredible. How could this happen? It was the Super 7 of Vought Company, the guy called the train. We had already seen Lisa at that time, and we were just across the street. She was standing on the sidewalk waiting for the green light and waved to us. Uncle Ben's voice was choked. Who knew that she would be hit by a train in the next second, with blood and flesh flying everywhere, and not even a body was left? Peter clenched his fists uncontrollably, his eyes slightly red. Super 7. The train. Peter was not unfamiliar with this guy, having watched the American TV series The Boys in his previous life. There were not many good people in the entire Vought Company. All superheroes are packaged. They make movies, commercials, and live broadcasts with only one purpose: to make money. As for those Superman types, most of them are assholes. This train is one of them. His super ability is speed. Your Aunt May was frightened. The doctor said she needs to rest. George is going through the hospitalization procedures. You go see her. Peter nodded and walked into the ward. Because of George's identity as the chief of the police department, the hospital gave preferential treatment and Aunt May lived in a separate ward. At this moment, Aunt May was lying on the bed, with tears still hanging on her face. Aunt May. Peter walked over and sat beside her bed. Peter, I'm fine. This matter won't just end like this, Peter said in a low voice. Don't do stupid things, kid. This is Lisa's life. The person who killed her is not an ordinary person. The law will not stand on our side. Peter didn't speak. The law can't punish these guys, but the Punisher can. You should pay attention, Aunt May. If Aunt Lisa knows about this, she won't be so sad for you. Don't worry, as Uncle Ben said, this world will always be rewarded for good and punished for evil. Chapter 50. Good deeds are rewarded with good, and evil deeds are punished with evil? Peter never believed in this kind of self-deceiving lie of a coward. It is better to rely on yourself than on others. Peter left the hospital and smoked next to the trash can. The latest interview video about the locomotive was playing on his mobile phone. The black man in the blue battle suit said to the camera with an apologetic look, I hit someone to death today. I am very sorry for this, but this matter cannot be blamed on me. I was tracking the criminal at the time, and the man happened to be standing in the middle of the road. What a lie. Peter turned off the video. At the same time, a mechanical electronic sound sounded in his ears. You have triggered a new task. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Some people are always gilded on the outside, but rotten on the inside. When a wolf wears the coat of a sheep, it will be a disaster for the entire flock of sheep. Please kill the locomotive. Completing the task will reward 20,000 points and a special ability. Even if there is no such task, Peter will kill this guy, not to mention eliminating evil for the world. This time it is a personal vendetta. The car horn sounded, and a taxi stopped beside Peter. Gwen, wearing a white sweater, got out of the car and hugged Peter. She held him in her arms. I heard everything, Peter. Don't be too sad. The bad guys will be punished. I will always be with you. Peter smiled bitterly. Don't worry, Gwen. I'm fine. It's okay. Gwen accompanied Peter back home, and it was getting dark. The two snuggled together until late at night before Gwen left. Peter, I'll come again tomorrow. You have a good rest tonight. Well, see you tomorrow. Gwen returned to her home and took out Spider-Woman's battle suit from the small suitcase at the bottom of the closet. Father George had already told her about the accident that happened to Peter's aunt. I can't believe that the locomotive that claims to be a hero would actually hit and kill civilians, and he didn't apologize and threw dirty water on decedent. It seems that not all of the Super 7 in Vought Company are superheroes. If this happened to someone else, Gwen would at most curse the locomotive in her heart. But the dead were Peter's relatives. Then this matter cannot be easily let go. Vought Corporation has its own branch in every big city. In New York, one of the largest cities in the world, they naturally have branches. At night, Gwen took a taxi, changed into Spider-Woman's uniform, and came to Vought Corporation. There were many security personnel standing outside the door, but unfortunately, Spider-Woman never went through the main entrance. Swinging Cobweb, climbed to the rooftop. Then enter the interior of Vought Corporation from the rooftop. Although the staff inside the company were surprised to see her, they did not think much about it. After all, this is a company that originally produced Superman. Hello, may I ask which room the locomotive is in? I was recruited by him, and he said he invited me to join the candidate team of the Super 7. The staff pointed her in a direction. Gwen stretched her muscles. Locomotive, I won't let you die, but I will definitely make you unable to get out of bed in this life. Gwen took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Who? The impatient voice of the train came from inside. Hello, I'm Spider-Woman. Homelander asked me to come. I said let me learn from you. Advertisement. Homelander is the captain of the Super 7. This is a well-known fact. Fuck. The train cursed from inside. Leave all the dirty work to me. Go to your Homelander. Complaints may be complaints, but the train dare not offend Homelander. He opened the door obediently. The moment he saw Gwen, he was obviously a little surprised. With the development of social media, the name Spider-Woman has been popular on the internet for some time. Did Homelander ask you to come? From now on you will. Before the train finished speaking, Gwen used all her strength to punch the train in the face. Even though Gwen tends to be agile, her strength should not be underestimated. With spider genes, the power of this punch is several hundred pounds. With a bang, the train flew out. The bridge of the nose was completely broken, and even a few teeth were broken. Nosebleed. Gwen slammed his back foot and closed the door behind him. Locomotive, you messed with someone you shouldn't mess with. 2 cobwebs shot at Locomotive. If Gwen had attacked Locomotive's legs just now, he would have kneeled down and begged for mercy, begging Gwen to spare his life. But his legs were not hurt at all. He dodged the attack in an instant and hit Gwen with severe pain on his face. With spider telepathy, Gwen can dodge the attack. But he can only dodge, and it is impossible to fight back. Locomotive's speed is too fast. You are not sent by Homelander. Who are you? The noise is getting louder and louder. Another member of the Super 7, Deep Sea, who is doing unspeakable things with Octopus next door, also heard the sound of fighting. He entered Locomotive's room, just saw the scene of the battle. I'll go find Homelander. Just as he was about to move, a big hand grabbed his neck and lifted him up. You don't have this chance. P.S. By the way, do you know the roles of the Black Robe Patrol? If you don't know, I've passed this plot, and there's another plot about Azu later, so I won't write about it. Top up 100 and get 500 VIP points. Top up now, event time. October 1st to October 7th.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.